Welcome back to Azkaban this time. We're bringing you What If Harry Was the Secret Son of Severus Snape. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Blood under glass. The dungeon smelled of copper and burnt rosemary, which was, Harry had decided 2 minutes into the lesson, the smell of a Friday afternoon going wrong. He stirred his cauldron 3 times widdershins because the board said 3 times widdershins, and watched the surface refuse to turn the pale, milky green it was supposed to turn. It stayed gray. Stubbornly gray, the gray of cold porridge and disappointment. "Yours has gone the wrong color," Ron muttered, leaning over. "I know it's gone the wrong color. Mine's gone the wrong color too, if it makes you feel any better." "It doesn't." Hermione, 3 benches away, had a cauldron of something that looked like liquid moonlight, and she was not even paying attention to it. She was reading the next page of the textbook with the dreamy focus of a person who had finished early and wanted everyone to know. Harry envied her, then forgave her, then envied her again in the space of a single stir. "Add the powdered moonstone now," Snape said from somewhere behind him, in that voice that always sounded as if he were reading out a death sentence in a language he found tedious. Slowly. Those of you who lack the basic motor control to pour without spilling are excused from this exercise on the grounds that you are not, in fact, conscious. A nervous titter from the Slytherin side. Harry ignored it, gripped the little glass vial of moonstone and tipped. He had every intention of tipping slowly. He did. He really did. But Malfoy, 2 benches up, leaned back at exactly the wrong moment to whisper something to Goyle, and his elbow caught the edge of Harry's bench, and the bench wobbled, and the vial tipped, and the powdered moonstone went into Harry's cauldron in a single silvery dump, like snow being shoveled off a roof. The gray potion did 3 things very quickly. It went white, it went still, and it climbed. It climbed up the inside of the cauldron like something deciding it had a personal opinion about gravity. It crested the lip. It poured itself in a slow, neat film across the workbench, around Harry's fingers, around the edge of his copy of Advanced Potion Making, and onto the sheet of vellum he had been using to take notes. Harry made a noise that was not quite a word. "Move," Snape said, already there, already at his elbow, wand out. And a quick flick evanescoed the spreading film off the bench, off Harry's hands, off the textbook, off everything in fact except the sheet of vellum, which had drunk the potion in like a sponge and was now glowing very faintly along its fibers in a color that did not belong to any spectrum Harry recognized. Snape went still. It was a small stillness, the kind that didn't draw attention to itself. To anyone else watching, the potion's master had simply paused mid-cleanup, his wand half raised, his black eyes fixed on a piece of parchment that had absorbed a botched potion. It looked like nothing. It was nothing. Harry started to apologize. Professor, I'm sorry." Malfoy knocked the bench. "I didn't." "Quiet." The word came out flat, not angry, not snapping, just flat, as if Snape had used up his last quart of voice modulation on something inside his own head and had nothing left over for the boy in front of him. Harry shut up. Snape's eyes did not move from the parchment. Slowly, very slowly, he lifted the vellum by one corner with the tip of his wand, careful not to touch it directly. The faint glow along the fibers was beginning to resolve itself into shapes, lines, words. The class had gone quiet without quite noticing it had. There is a kind of silence that happens in classrooms when an adult does something unscripted, and it was happening now, the small, attentive hush of 20 teenagers who have all sensed, without being able to say why, that something has shifted. "Class is dismissed," Snape said. Hermione's head jerked up. "Sir, we have another 20. Class is dismissed, Miss Granger. Leave your cauldrons. Leave your bags if you like. I want everyone out of this room in the next 30 seconds. And if I find any of you loitering in the corridor, you will be in detention until you are eligible for a pension. Out." Nobody argued. Snape's voice had gone from flat to something thinner and sharper, and even Malfoy, who was usually delighted by chaos involving Harry, looked uneasy as he gathered his things. Ron grabbed Harry's bag and his own and was halfway to the door before Harry had registered that he was supposed to be moving. Snape did not look at Harry. "You, stay." Harry stayed. The door shut behind the last student, Hermione, casting one bewildered backwards look, and Snape stood with the parchment hanging from the tip of his wand, and Harry stood by his cauldron with potion-damp fingertips, and for what felt like a long time neither of them said anything. Then Snape walked, very deliberately, to his own desk at the front of the room. He laid the parchment down on the dark wood as if it were made of glass. He tapped it twice with his wand, murmuring something Harry didn't catch, and the faint glow brightened, the lines steadied. The words settled themselves into the kind of formal calligraphy Harry associated with certificates and ministry letters. Snape leaned over the desk. His hair fell forward around his face like a curtain. His shoulders did not move. Harry, after a moment, said, "Sir, is that bad? Did the potion do something I shouldn't have? Be quiet, Potter." "Yes, sir." He was quiet. He stood by the cauldron and he was quiet, and he watched Snape read whatever was on the parchment, and he watched Snape read it again, and a third time, and he watched the long, thin hand at the edge of the desk close, very slowly, into a fist. "Sit down," Snape said. "Sir." "Sit down." Harry sat down. He had to perch on the bench because his cauldron and the other failed bits of Friday afternoon were still arrayed around him, but he sat. Snape did not sit. Snape stood with one hand braced on the edge of his desk, and one hand fisted on the parchment, and he was not looking at Harry, and his face had gone the color of old parchment itself. "Tell me," Snape said, in a voice that was no longer flat but had taken on a strange, careful quality, as though every word were being weighed before it was permitted out, "what you know about the potion you were brewing today." It was the reveal lineage draught, the one in chapter 12. "Recite the page." Sir, I don't recite." Harry swallowed. "It says it's used at Gringotts and at the ministry and sometimes at some of the older houses. It can show, inheritance. If you put a drop on a piece of parchment with someone's blood already on it, it'll write out the bloodline 3 generations, sometimes more if you've added asphodel root, which we did add asphodel root, sir, you told us to." "I did," Snape said. "I told you to. And the powdered moonstone fixes it, the book says, so the writing doesn't fade. So that vellum," he stopped because he had only just understood what he was saying. Snape did not move. "Sir," Harry said slowly, "there's no blood on that parchment. I haven't cut myself. I would have noticed if I'd—" He glanced at his own hands. The potion had splashed them. The cauldron had been simmering for an hour. The pestle he'd been grinding the asphodel with had a chip on the rim, and his thumbprint along the rim of the pestle had a dark crusted line where he had nicked himself on it. Hours ago. Before class even started, when he'd been laying out his ingredients. He'd licked the blood off and forgotten about it. His thumb had touched the parchment when he laid it flat on the bench. Just a smear. Just a smear of dried Harry across one corner. "Oh," Harry said, very softly. The silence in the dungeon had a weight to it. Harry felt it on his shoulders. Outside, somewhere up the corridor, a portrait was singing very faintly to itself in what sounded like Welsh. The torches popped. A drop of water somewhere in the stones of the wall fell with a tiny silvery TK. "Professor," Harry said. Snape did not answer. "Professor, does it say something about my parents? Because it's all right. I know who my parents are. James and Lily Potter, Mum and Dad. I know that already, sir. You don't have to. Get out. Sir. Get out, Potter. Out of this dungeon. Now." Harry stood up so fast he nearly knocked over the bench. "Sir, you will not," Snape said, and his voice had gone soft in a way Harry had never heard before. Soft and dangerous, like a cat moving in a long room. "Discuss this lesson with anyone. Not Granger. Not Weasley. Not your godfather. Not the headmaster. Not until I have spoken to you again. Do you understand me?" "No," Harry said honestly. Then learn to, out, Harry went. He grabbed his bag from where Ron had dropped it by the door. Ron had, of course, only made it 5 paces into the corridor before deciding to wait, and he went. He did not look back. If he had, he would have seen Severus Snape, who had stood through Cruciatus and through Voldemort's pleased smiles and through 15 years of teaching small children to make things explode, sit down very slowly into his own chair behind his own desk, and put both hands flat against his face, and not move for a long, long time. What happened? Hermione was on him before he had cleared the 3rd corridor, walking sideways like a sheepdog. Ron was on his other flank with Harry's potion kit slung over his shoulder. "Nothing," Harry said. "I don't know, nothing." Nothing. He cleared a class with 20 minutes still to go. He looked like someone had hit him with a brick. He didn't look like someone had hit him with a brick. He looked annoyed. He's always annoyed. He looked, said Hermione precisely, like a man who has just been informed of a bereavement. "Harry, what happened?" "The potion went over the bench, all right. I've got to clean my robes. I'll see you at dinner." He peeled off at the next staircase before they could insist. Ron called something after him that included the word oi and possibly the words you absolute. But Harry took the stairs 3 at a time and was around the corner before the staircase had finished deciding which floor it wanted to be on. He didn't go to the dormitory. He went up. He didn't really know why he went up. There was a window on the 7th floor that looked out over the lake and the mountains, and he had got into the habit, in his 5th year, of going there when the inside of his head had gone too loud. He went there now, and he leaned his forehead against the cold glass and he thought, deliberately, nothing for a long time. The lake was the color of wet slate. The mountains were the color of mountains. Somewhere down on the grounds Hagrid was striding along a path with what looked like 2 small hippogriffs trotting after him, and a 3rd small hippogriff galloping ahead of him, and a 4th small hippogriff sitting where it had decided to sit and refusing on principle to move. Harry watched the 4th small hippogriff. There was a great deal to be said for being a small hippogriff that had decided not to move. It is a strange thing, he thought, to feel that something enormous has happened to you and not to know what it is. He had cut his thumb on a pestle. He had spilled a potion. The potion had drunk his blood and written something on a piece of vellum, and Snape had read it, and Snape had told him to leave and not to talk to anyone, not to Sirius, and Snape's hand had closed into a fist on the desk in a way that Harry had seen, exactly twice in his life, in his own hand. The first time was when Aunt Petunia had told him his parents had been drunk. The second time was when Sirius had told him his parents had not been drunk. He had no idea what was on the parchment. But Snape had not shouted. Snape always shouted. Snape's whole pedagogy was shouting. And just now in that dungeon Snape had not shouted. Snape had said "Get out, Potter" in a voice that was not the "Get out, Potter" voice. Snape had been afraid. Harry watched the 4th small hippogriff for another long minute. Then he went down to dinner because his stomach was growling and because his stomach was the only part of him still operating on its usual schedule. He did not tell Ron. He did not tell Hermione. He sat between them and ate shepherd's pie and answered questions about his charms essay and laughed at the right places and felt, the entire time, as if he were a large balloon being held just under the surface of a swimming pool by someone who had not yet decided whether to let him drown or let him up. He looked once at the staff table. Snape was not there. The vellum lay on Severus Snape's desk for 47 minutes after Harry left the dungeon. Snape did not pick it up. He had read it. He did not need to read it again. He had read it 4 times. And the 4th time he had read it as a man reads a letter that says someone has died, and after that he had not been able to read it anymore. He sat in his chair with his hands flat against his face, and he did not move for a long time, and when he did move, it was to stand and to walk to the cabinet at the back of his office, and to pour himself a measure of something dark from a black glass bottle. He did not drink it. He held the glass in one hand and he stood looking at the cabinet and he thought, with great clarity, I am going to kill her. He meant Lily. He had never killed anyone in his life. He had stood at the right hand of a man who killed people for entertainment, and he had brewed the poisons that other men had used. And he had once, in the quiet privacy of his own thoughts, considered whether it was possible to kill a man as personally negligible as Peter Pettigrew, and he had concluded that the difficulty of disposing of the body was not worth the satisfaction. He was, despite his reputation and his taste in clothing, not a man who killed people. He was nevertheless going to kill Lily. Lily, of course, was already dead. This made the project both easier and harder. He set the glass down on the cabinet without drinking. He turned. He walked back across the dungeon to his desk. He picked up the parchment very carefully by one corner. The lineage script had finished writing itself. The faint glow had faded. What was left was a tidy, formal genealogical chart, drawn out in the lacquer black ink the potion always produced, and at the bottom of the chart, where the most recent generation lived, were two names, drawn out in the careful Gringotts-approved hand. Harry James Potter, born 31 July 1980, mother. Lily Jean Evans Potter, father. Severus Snape. The name James Potter appeared on the chart. He was listed, 3 lines up, as Harry's guardian of record and legal sire by ministry adoption registered 14 August 1980, Wisengamot file BX 447-9. Snape stood in his dungeon with the parchment between his fingers and he counted backwards. He counted very carefully because it mattered. July 1980. Take off 9 months. October 1979. He had seen Lily exactly once in the autumn of 1979. She had sent him an owl. Save, I need to talk to you, just talk, please. The Hog's Head, Friday, 8 o'clock. I won't ask anything you don't want to give. He had gone. Of course he had gone. They had not talked. They had gone upstairs because the noise downstairs had been intolerable, and they had sat on opposite ends of a dirty bed in a room with a broken window, and they had not talked, and then they had talked, and then they had not talked again, and at some point in the small hours she had cried into his shoulder and said, I'm so frightened, Save. I'm so frightened all the time, and he had said nothing because there was nothing to say. And they had fallen asleep in their clothes and woken in the gray cold of a Hogsmeade morning, and looked at each other with the kind of horror that 2 people experience when they have done something that cannot be put back into its bottle. She had said, don't write to me. He had not written to her. He had heard in March that James and Lily Potter had announced they were expecting a child. He had been pleased for them, pleased in the careful, surgical way he had taught himself to be pleased about Lily, and he had sat in his rooms in the place where he was then living, and he had drunk most of a bottle of bad fire whiskey and gone to bed. He had not done the arithmetic. He had not done the arithmetic because there had been no arithmetic to do. Lily was married. Lily had been married for more than a year. Lily had a husband who adored her, and a husband who had been adoring her, presumably and unobjectionably, throughout the entire window in question, and there had been no reason on earth to think that one regretted, drunken night in a Hogsmeade inn had produced anything except shame. He looked at the parchment. It was not impossible. It was, he supposed, not even improbable. Once was sufficient. He had read the literature. He had read the literature, in fact, very thoroughly when he was 16, because reading the literature had been considerably easier than asking Lily anything. The boy had her eyes. The boy had her eyes. He had told himself for 15 years that the boy had her eyes by an accident of inheritance, and that this accident was a private cruelty visited on him by a universe that disliked him. He had told himself that the eyes were a coincidence. He had told himself that the eyes were a debt. He had told himself a great many things about the eyes, and now he stood in a stone room in a stone castle, and he understood that the eyes were not a coincidence. The eyes were his wife's eyes. She had not been his wife. He understood that Lily had not been his wife at any point in her life, formally or informally or in any other way. She had been very briefly his lover, and then she had been for a much longer time his enemy, and then she had been a memory, and then she had been a corpse. And now, 15 years too late, he was being informed by a piece of moonstone-fixed vellum that she had also been the mother of his only child. His only child. He set the parchment down on the desk again. His hands, he noted with detachment, were trembling. He was going to kill her. He sat down. He let his head rest briefly against the edge of his own desk, the cool wood against his forehead, and he closed his eyes and he tried to breathe. He thought Albus knew. He had no proof of this. He had no evidence. He had nothing except the absolute, cold, unshakable certainty in his bones that Albus Dumbledore had, of course, known. Lily had trusted Dumbledore. Lily had loved Dumbledore. Lily would have gone to Dumbledore the moment she had realized what she was carrying. And Dumbledore would have looked at her with those terrible blue eyes, and he would have said, "My dear, are you certain?" And Lily would have said, "Yes," and Dumbledore would have nodded gravely and said, "Then we will make arrangements." The arrangements were a ministry adoption. Legal sire by ministry adoption, registered 14 August 1980. James Potter had registered as Harry's father 2 weeks after Harry was born. 2 weeks. That was not a man who had married a pregnant woman in a moment of confusion. That was a man who had known. James had known. Snape lifted his head off the desk. Something in him that had been one thing for 15 years began, very slowly, to rearrange itself into something else. James Potter. James bloody Potter. James Potter, who had bullied him for 7 years, who had hung him upside down in front of the entire school for the crime of existing, who had married Lily and stolen her from him, in the way that handsome men had been stealing pretty women from awkward men since the invention of the species. James Potter, who had fathered the boy who had Lily's eyes. James Potter had not fathered the boy who had Lily's eyes. James Potter had taken on the boy who had Lily's eyes. James Potter had stood in the Ministry of Magic, presumably with Lily on his arm and with Sirius bloody black at his elbow, and James Potter had signed his name to a piece of parchment that said, "I claim this child as mine, and I will be his father." James Potter had done that knowing that the child was Severus Snape's. Snape sat in his chair, and he did not move for a long time. He was not, he discovered, going to kill Lily. He was going to do something much worse than killing Lily. He was going to have to forgive her. He was going to have to forgive James, and that was going to be appalling. He was, in addition, going to have to do something about the boy, his son. The phrase sat in his head and would not be moved. He stood up. He picked up the parchment. He folded it with great care into a precise rectangle along clean creases, and he tucked it into the inside pocket of his teaching robes, and he walked out of his dungeon and up through the school in the long, deliberate strides of a man with a very particular destination, and no intention whatever of being slowed down on the way. He went to find the headmaster. The gargoyle on the 7th floor corridor took one look at Severus Snape's face and decided not to ask for a password. It stepped aside. The spiral staircase carried him up. He did not knock. He pushed the door open with the flat of his hand, and the door swung inward without resistance because Albus Dumbledore had, of course, been expecting him. Dumbledore was at his desk. His hands were folded. The portraits in their frames had all gone elaborately to sleep, which is what portraits do when they want to listen to something and don't want to be accused of listening. Fawkes shifted on his perch and did not look up. "Severus," Dumbledore said, "you look. Don't." Dumbledore inclined his head and said nothing. Snape walked across the office in 5 long steps. He did not sit. He took the parchment out of his pocket, and he laid it down on Dumbledore's desk with a precision that was almost gentle, and he stepped back 2 paces and he stood with his hands at his sides and he waited. Dumbledore picked up the parchment. He did not need to read it. Snape watched the old man's face, and he saw, with the distant satisfaction of a man whose worst suspicion has just been catastrophically confirmed, that Albus Dumbledore had not so much as flinched. "Ah," Dumbledore said. "Ah," Snape echoed. The word landed in the room like a dropped knife. "Is that what you have to say to me? Ah, Severus, how long?" "Severus, how long, Albus?" Dumbledore set the parchment down. He looked for the first time in Snape's memory of him genuinely tired. The blue eyes had lost some of their twinkle. The hands on the desk lay still. "Lily came to me in February of 1980, Dumbledore said. She had only just become certain. She was very frightened, Severus. She was already being targeted. She had reason to believe Voldemort would come for her child, whoever the father was, and she had reason to believe that if it became known that the child was yours, don't use her like that. I am not using her. I am telling you what she said to me. She said if Severus knows and Voldemort discovers that Severus knows, Severus will die, and Severus will die badly, and the child will not be safe even then. She asked me to keep the secret. I kept the secret. James knew, Sirius knew, Remus did not, Peter did not. The adoption was registered. The boy was raised as a Potter. And then she was murdered. And then she was murdered. And you did not think at any point in the 15 years since that the boy's father, Severus, that the boy's father might have wanted to know. He had not raised his voice. He realized this with surprise. He had thought he was shouting. He was not shouting. His voice had gone very quiet, the kind of quiet that has all its volume in the wrong places. I considered it, Dumbledore said, many times. You considered it. I did. I came very close to telling you, Severus, in the summer after Lily died. You were not yet steady. I could not be certain you would survive the knowledge. I waited for you to steady. By the time you had steadied, there were other reasons to wait. The boy was at the Dursleys where I judged him safest. To bring you into his life would have endangered both of you. When he came to Hogwarts, I sat in the Great Hall and I watched a small dark-haired boy with Lily's eyes be sorted into Gryffindor, and I have watched him for 5 years, and I have taught him, and I have humiliated him, and I have called him an arrogant little Burke and a mediocrity and a dunderhead in front of his peers. I am aware, Severus. And you sat in this office, and you let me. The quiet had become something terrible. Fawkes on his perch lifted his head and made a single low note that was almost a hum. Dumbledore did not look away. Yes, he said, I let you. Why? Because the role you were playing required it, and the role he was playing required it. Because Lord Voldemort believes still that you despise the boy. Because if Lord Voldemort had ever had cause to believe that you cherished the boy, you would have been killed within the week, and so would the boy, and so would a great many others. That is a justification, Albus. It is not a reason. No, Dumbledore said. It is not a reason. The reason, I have many reasons, Severus, and most of them are, I think, defensible, and one of them is not. And that one is, I was afraid of what you would do, to the boy, to yourself, to me. I was afraid you would tell him, and I was afraid you would not tell him, and I was afraid of what either of those would cost. I made the choice that was easiest for me to live with, and I told myself it was the choice that was easiest for him to live with. I was wrong. Snape stared at him. He had come to this office prepared for many things. He had been prepared for Dumbledore to deny it. He had been prepared for Dumbledore to apologize. He had been prepared for Dumbledore to be cunning and oblique and infuriatingly kind. He had not been prepared for I was wrong, which Albus Dumbledore did not say in Snape's experience ever. He sat down. He had not meant to sit down. There was a chair behind his knees, and he sat down into it, and he looked at the parchment on the desk, and he understood, with an exhaustion that made his bones feel like they had been replaced with wet rope, that the conversation was not going to give him what he had come for. There was nothing in this room that was going to give him what he had come for. What he had come for was the past 15 years of Harry Potter's life, and the past 15 years of Harry Potter's life had been spent and could not be returned. "Does he know?" Snape said. "Harry?" "Yes, Harry. He does not. He will. He is not a stupid child. He saw my face. He will work it out, or he will go to Granger and she will work it out, or he will go to Black and Black will simply guess, because Black has been waiting 15 years to." "Sirius does not know." Snape's head came up. "Sirius does not know. James never told him. Lily asked James not to. Sirius believes he is Harry's godfather and that James was Harry's father, and he has believed this for as long as he has had occasion to believe anything about it. Then James was a better man than I have ever given him credit for." The words were out before he could catch them. Dumbledore did not smile. Dumbledore said very quietly, "Yes, he was." Snape sat in the chair and he looked at the parchment and he thought, "I have wasted 15 years hating a man who deserved better of me." He thought, "I have wasted 15 years hating a child who deserved better of me." He thought, with a kind of horror, "I have made Harry Potter's life worse every single year, and it is not for the reasons I told myself." "What do I do?" he said. Dumbledore did not answer at once. "I do not know, Severus," he said finally. "I do not think I am the right person to tell you that. I think you must speak to him, soon, before he goes to anyone else. The vellum cannot be unmade. He will have questions. He will have questions. He will have a great many questions. And I am to answer them. I think you must, yes." Snape laughed once without any humor in it at all. "And what do I tell him, Albus? Do I tell him I am your father, your real father, and the man you were taught to love is in fact merely the man who stood in for me out of pity for your mother? Do I tell him I have hated the look of you for 15 years because the look of you was a knife in my ribs and I could not afford to admit who had put the knife there? Do I tell him I am sorry? It is a very large word, Albus, sorry. It does not stretch this far. You will find," Dumbledore said softly, "that words do stretch if you put weight on them carefully. You may also find, and I say this not as a headmaster but as a man who has learned it, that the boy is more generous than you have allowed yourself to imagine. He has every reason not to be generous. He has many reasons not to be. He may be anyway. Children are surprising in this respect. They are often more forgiving of the parents they meet late than the parents they have lived with all along." Snape was very still for a moment. Then he said, "You are not to tell him. Severus, you are not to tell him, not yet. Not until I will tell him. I do not know when, I do not know how, but I will tell him, and you will not arrange for him to be told, and you will not orchestrate any meaningful glances in his direction at the dinner table, and you will not send him to my office under pretext, and you will not, for the love of Merlin and any other god you happen to believe in, do any of the things you do. Do I have your word?" "You have my word. Swear it." "Severus, I swear it, Albus." Dumbledore looked at him for a long moment. Then gravely, the old man drew his wand and laid it across his palm and said, in the formal phrasing of a wizard's oath, "I, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, swear upon my magic that I shall not by word, by inference, or by deliberate arrangement convey to Harry James Potter the fact of his paternity until such time as Severus Snape has done so himself or has released me from this oath. So mote it be." Magic moved through the room in a small, quiet pulse. Fawkes hummed once. "Thank you," Snape said. He stood. He picked up the parchment, folded it back into its rectangle, and he tucked it back into his pocket, and he looked at Albus Dumbledore for a long moment, and he did not know what he was looking for. "Severus," Dumbledore said, "I am, for what little it is worth to you, I am very sorry." "It is worth," Snape said, "almost nothing, but thank you for saying it." He turned. He was at the door when Dumbledore spoke again. "Severus, may I ask one thing?" "You may ask. I do not promise to answer." "What will you do?" Snape paused with his hand on the door frame. The dark wood was warm under his fingers. He looked back at the old man at the desk and at the phoenix on the perch and at the parchment in his own pocket, and he thought, I do not know, I do not know, I do not know. I will keep him alive, he said. That is what I have been doing for 5 years. I am simply going to do it now while knowing why. He went down the stairs. The gargoyle slid back into place behind him. Harry was on the staircase to the owlery when he heard the footsteps. He had gone up to the owlery because he had decided, between dinner and pudding, that he was going to write to Sirius. He had not formed a clear idea of what he was going to write. Dear Sirius, Snape went strange in potions today and made everyone leave, and then told me not to talk to you about it. What do you reckon? It was not the world's best opener. He thought he might fiddle with it on the way up. The footsteps were behind him, and they were fast, and he knew without turning who they belonged to, because Severus Snape was the only adult in the castle whose footsteps moved at that speed when he was not actually running. The footsteps caught up to him on the 3rd landing. Potter, Harry turned. Snape stood 3 steps below him on the staircase, which made them, briefly, the same height. The torchlight on the wall cast Snape's face in that yellow that aged everyone by 10 years. His hair was a little unkempt at the side, as though he had been pushing his hand through it. His mouth was a thin line. Sir, where are you going? The owlery. To write to whom? A pause. Sirius. Snape's eyes closed for a fraction of a second. They opened. He said very levelly, You will not write to Sirius. Not tonight. Not about today's lesson. Sir, you said not to talk to him, you didn't say. I am saying it now. Do not write to him. Do not send an owl. Do not, in fact, tell anyone anything about today's lesson. I require time. I require 3 days. Give me 3 days, Potter, and I will tell you myself what is on the parchment. Harry stared. There were 1,000 things he could have said. Most of them were variations on what is on the parchment, sir. He looked at Snape's face, and he looked at Snape's mouth, and he looked at the way Snape was standing, straight-backed, hands at his sides. The way a man stood when he was trying not to do anything else with his hands, and he thought again, he is afraid. Sir, he said, is someone going to die? It came out smaller than he had meant it. Snape blinked. Whatever he had been bracing for, that had not been it. No, he said. No, Potter, no one is going to die. It is not that kind of news. What kind of news is it? It is the kind of news, Snape said, that I am not yet able to deliver. 3 days. Harry looked at him. He had been looking at this man on and off for 5 years, and he had never once thought of him as a man at all. He had thought of him as a feature of the dungeon, like the cauldrons or the smell. Now he was looking at him properly, and he was startled to find that there was a man inside the robes, and that the man inside the robes was not, at this moment, an enemy. 3 days, Harry said. 3 days. And you'll tell me. I will tell you. All right. He had not meant to agree. He had meant to argue. He had agreed anyway. There was something in Snape's face that did not permit argument, not a threat, but a request, although Snape would have rather died than have called it that. Snape inclined his head once, almost a bow, not quite. Thank you, Potter. The words were so foreign in Snape's mouth that for a moment Harry was not sure he had heard them. Snape did not say thank you to him. Snape did not say thank you to anyone as far as Harry knew. The moment passed before Harry could pin it down. Snape had already turned and was halfway back down the stairs, his robes a black slick of motion in the torchlight. Harry stood on the 3rd landing with his half-written letter in his pocket, and he looked at the place where Snape had been, and he thought, very clearly, something is wrong. Something is very, very wrong, and it is not the kind of wrong I am used to. He did not go to the owlery. He went back down to the common room, and he sat by the fire next to Ron, and he did not write to Sirius. And when Hermione asked him, quietly, an hour later whether he was all right, he said yes. And she said Harry, and he said again yes. And she let it go because she could see that he meant it. Not that he was all right, but that he was not, at the moment, capable of being not all right out loud. He went to bed at 11. He did not sleep. He lay in the dark of the four-poster with the curtains pulled, and he listened to Ron snore, and he listened to Neville mutter, and he thought on a loop about the way Snape's hand had closed slowly into a fist on the edge of the desk. 3 days, Snape had said. Harry could give him 3 days. Harry was not at all sure he could give him 4. In the dungeons, 3 floors and several stone corridors away, Severus Snape was not sleeping either. He sat at his desk in his rooms with the parchment unfolded in front of him, and he had a fresh sheet of his own paper at his elbow, and a quill, and a cup of black coffee that had gone cold an hour ago, and he was trying to work out what he was going to say. He had written, "Potter, there is something you need to know about your parentage. It will not be," he had crossed it out. He had written, "Harry, there is no easy way to say this," he had crossed it out. He had written, "I have always," he had crossed it out. He had written, finally, "It is not necessary that you should love me. It is, however, necessary that you should know." He had stared at the line for a long time, and then he had crossed it out too, and he had set the quill down, and he had put his face in his hands, and he had sat in the dark of his own rooms, and he had tried, for what felt like a very long time, to remember the color of Lily's hair in the autumn of 1979. He could not remember it. He could remember her eyes, Merlin. He could remember her eyes. He saw them every day in his classroom, but he could not remember the color of her hair, and this struck him as the cruelest of all the small cruelties that Lily Evans had ever done him, and the only one she had ever done him by accident. Outside the narrow window of his dungeon office, the lake lay flat under the moon. A small silver disk of it caught the light through the glass. Somewhere very far above, in a dormitory in a tower, a boy with green eyes was lying awake staring at the underside of his bed curtains and thinking about the way a potion's master had said thank you to him on a staircase. The two of them did not sleep that Friday night for very nearly the same reasons. Neither of them knew that the other was awake. It was perhaps the closest they had ever come to being family. Chapter 1 end. Chapter 2. The memory in the vile Saturday morning came in gray and inappropriate. Harry woke before the bells, which was unusual. He was a person who had to be hauled out of bed by Ron, and a sense of communal obligation. He woke this Saturday at 6:20 and lay flat on his back staring at the canopy of his four-poster and counting, in the dim, the small repeating embroidered phoenixes along the seam. There were, he established for the 3rd time that week, 64 of them. The small repeating embroidered phoenixes had not changed during the night. Nothing had changed during the night. The world was disappointingly stable. He got up. He pulled on a jumper over his pajamas because the dormitory was cold, and he padded to the window in his socks and looked out, and the lake did its lake thing of being gray and large, and it occurred to him, with the lucidity that sometimes visits people at 6:20 in the morning, that he was probably not going to make it to Tuesday. Snape had said 3 days. Friday plus 3 days was Monday. That was a long time to wait for news. He went down to the common room. The fire had burned low and Crookshanks was on the hearthrug with his eyes shut, although the eyes opened a slit when Harry came in and then shut again, in the considered manner of a cat who had assessed the new arrival and judged it not worth the energy. Harry sat in the armchair next to him. He poked at the fire with the iron tongs. The fire cooperated. He poked again. The fire ignored him. He sat for a while. Eventually, because there was nothing else to do, and because his brain was running at the kind of pitch that needs employment or it starts chewing furniture, he pulled his potions textbook out of his bag and opened it to chapter 12. The Reveal Lineage Draft. He read the chapter slowly. It was, on a second reading, a much more frightening piece of magic than it had looked on the first. A drop of the finished potion on a piece of parchment containing 1 or 2 living cells, saliva, blood, hair, whatever, and the parchment would write out in neat genealogical script 3 to 7 generations of ancestry, depending on the rarity and freshness of the ingredients. With the asphodel root, you got 6 generations. With moonstone fixing, the writing was permanent. The book noted in its small, careful italics that the draft was used at Gringotts to verify the heirs of disputed estates, at the ministry to confirm magical paternity in inheritance disputes, and in the older purebloods' houses to satisfy the obsession of grandmothers. The book did not say it was used to derail Saturday mornings, but Harry felt the book had been remiss not to mention it. He stared at the page. He read it again. The draft reveals biological parentage with absolute reliability when properly fixed, the book said, and is recognized by the Wisengamot in the absence of any contradicting magical proof. The only known method of falsifying its result is the application of a glimmer of lineage charm administered at the moment of brewing, which is a subject reserved for advanced practitioners and is not addressed in this text. Harry shut the book. He sat with his hand flat on the cover for a moment. Then he opened it again, and he read the chapter once more, very slowly, because he had a suspicion now of what the parchment had said, and it was the kind of suspicion that he very much wanted to be wrong about. His parents were James and Lily Potter. And he had grown up knowing this, and Hagrid had told him in a hut on a rock in the sea in 1991, and he had been told it again by Sirius and by Remus and by Dumbledore, and by every photograph in the album the Weasleys had given him, and his parents were James and Lily Potter. That was a fact. That was a fact like the fact that water was wet. A botched reveal lineage draft had, however, made Severus Snape go gray in the face and clear a classroom, and fold a parchment into his pocket as if he were folding a shroud. And Snape had said 3 days, and Snape had said do not write to Sirius, and Snape had said thank you on a staircase. The fire popped. Crookshanks yawned, displaying a perfectly pink interior unaccompanied by any opinions whatever. I want to be wrong about this, Harry told the cat. The cat closed his mouth. He did not commit to a position. Harry put the book back in his bag and went up to the dormitory and got dressed properly and went down to breakfast. The great hall was nearly empty at 7:30 on a Saturday. A few die-hard early risers, a knot of Ravenclaws hunched over a chessboard at one end of their table, 2 first-years comparing what looked like beetle collections at the other, and the staff table was even emptier. McGonagall was there with a cup of tea and a copy of the Prophet. Sprout was there in her gardening apron, eating toast in the manner of a woman who was not really eating toast, but rather was using toast as a base for marmalade. Snape was not there. Snape had not been there at dinner the night before, either. Harry sat down at the Gryffindor table and helped himself to porridge and tried not to look up at the staff table again, which is the thing one always tries not to do when one has just been told oneself not to look up at the staff table. He looked up at the staff table. Snape was still not there. He looked back at his porridge. He stirred in some honey. The honey made a slow spiral pattern. He watched the spiral pattern for longer than the spiral pattern deserved. "You're up early." Hermione had appeared at his elbow with her bag and her schedule in the brisk air of a person who was about to make a Saturday out of a Saturday. She slid onto the bench opposite him and helped herself to a triangle of toast. Couldn't sleep. She buttered the toast. She set the toast down. She did not pick it up again. "Harry, about yesterday." "Hermione, I'm not going to ask." "I just want you to know I'm not going to ask. I'm noting for the record that I'm not going to ask. Whatever it is, when you're ready, I will be ready." "Thank you. And in the meantime," she said, picking the toast back up, "I do think you should know that I have looked into the protocol for what happens when a potion is splashed onto a person's clothes during a brewing accident, in case there's any reason you want to claim damages or excuse yourself from the next class, because I noticed the reveal lineage draft is in Chapter 12, and there are rather specific ministry guidelines about what's supposed to happen to Hermione. I said I wasn't going to ask. I didn't say I was going to stop thinking out loud. There's a difference. There is, Hermione said, an enormous difference, and you'll be grateful for it later. Harry was already grateful for it. He suspected he was going to be more grateful for it by Monday. He ate his porridge in silence for a while, and Hermione ate her toast in silence beside him, and around them the hall slowly filled up as more of the school worked out it was breakfast time. Ron arrived at 20 to 8, mussed and irritable and in the wrong jumper. He sat down. He looked at Harry. He looked at Hermione. He looked back at Harry. "You're up early. Couldn't sleep." "Right." Ron took the porridge ladle and helped himself to roughly twice as much as Harry had taken. "Snape's still in a mood, then?" "Don't know. Haven't seen him. He was in the corridor outside the staff room before breakfast looking like someone had put a slug in his shoe. I gave him the long way round. Didn't fancy detention before I'd had any toast." "Sensible," said Hermione. "It's been known to happen," Ron said modestly. Harry kept his head down and ate. He could feel both of his friends carefully not looking at him, and he loved them both, and he wished them both very far away. He thought, "I will give Snape until Monday afternoon. If Monday afternoon comes and goes and he hasn't, Mr. Potter." The voice came from above and behind him. He knew it. Of course he knew it. Everyone in the school knew it now after 7 weeks of it. He turned slowly and looked up at Dolor's Umbridge. She was wearing a cardigan in a particular pink that did not occur in nature except in the gums of small shouting babies. The cardigan had a kitten brooch on it. The kitten brooch was not, on close inspection, a kitten. It was a small, vile, cardigan woman's idea of a kitten, which is a different and more disturbing object. Umbridge smiled at him. "Good morning, Mr. Potter." "Good morning, Professor." "I do hope I'm not interrupting your breakfast." "No, ma'am. I was just passing by and I noticed you, and I thought to myself, now, there's a young man who would benefit from a brief word. It's so important, isn't it, to have brief words? They keep things tidy, don't they keep things tidy?" "They do, ma'am," said Hermione in the voice she used for people whose teeth she was hoping would fall out. "Mr. Potter," Umbridge said, beaming as if Hermione had not spoken, "I have noticed, and Professor McGonagall has noticed, and indeed Professor Snape has noticed, that you have been a little, shall we say, agitated this week. Yesterday in particular. There was an incident in potions, I gather." "A spillage, a small disturbance." Harry's hand went still on the spoon. "The class was dismissed early," Umbridge continued blandly. "Most unusual, most irregular. I, of course, take a very strong interest in any irregularity in our school routines, as you know. The High Inquisitor, you understand, must take such an interest. And so I had hoped that you might, at your convenience, of course, no need to rush, drop into my office this afternoon and have a chat about the events of yesterday. Just a chat, just so I have it all clear, so that I might help. You do understand." Harry understood very well. So, judging by her face, did Hermione, who had set her toast down in a very controlled way and was looking at Umbridge over the top of her glasses with an expression that Harry hoped Umbridge could not read. "Yes, ma'am. Of course." "Lovely. Shall we say 4 o'clock? "Yes, ma'am." "Lovely. I shall expect you, Mr. Potter. Don't be late." She turned, and the cardigan did its small pink revolution behind her, and she went off down the hall in the particular bustling step of a woman whose self-importance was wider than her stride. Harry watched her go. Ron said, "What in the fresh hell? I don't know. She wants to know about potions yesterday. Why does she want to know about potions yesterday?" "I don't know, Ron." "Harry," Hermione said, "you're not going." "I have to go. She's the High Inquisitor. If I don't go, she'll write to the ministry by tea time and I'll be expelled by supper time." "You're not going alone, then?" "I'm coming with you." "You're not, Hermione. She'll throw you out as soon as you're through the door." "She can't throw me out if I'm there in an official capacity. I'll be there as a witness. I'll bring a quick quotes quill and a parchment and I'll take notes. She'll hate that. She'll hate it specifically because there's no rule against it. She'll invent one. She'll try to invent one. She'll be too busy inventing to actually conduct the interview. It's the same trick the ministry uses on her. You know, in the Wiesengamot reports, they fill the room with paper until the actual question gets buried. You've been reading Wiesengamot reports. I've been reading everything. Did you know that the High Inquisitor is technically not entitled to question a student about events in another professor's classroom unless the professor has filed a complaint? It's an educational decree number. Well, it's in one of them. I'll find it. I'll bring it. I'll bring the book and I will quote it at her. Harry looked at her with the wave of love he sometimes got for Hermione when she went into one of her competent fugues. "All right," he said. 4 o'clock. We bring the book. We bring the book. Should I come? Ron said. No, Hermione said. You'll lose your temper. Stay in the common room. Have the pepper-up potion ready. Harry might need it after. Right, said Ron. Common room, pepper-up, got it. I'll also keep a bludger ready in case I need to use it on her. You will not, Hermione said. Use a bludger on her. I might, Ron said. I haven't decided. Severus Snape spent Saturday morning in his dungeon laboratory brewing. He was brewing a potion that did not need to be brewed. It was the second potion in 2 days that he had brewed for no reason. The day before, he had brewed an entire cauldron of Wiggenweld for the hospital wing despite Madame Pomfrey having a perfectly adequate stock of Wiggenweld. Today he was brewing pepper-up, which the school stores did not need either. He brewed because he could not write the letter, and he could not have the conversation, and his hands had to do something or he would. He was reasonably certain. Take a hammer to the wall. The lab was warm. The cauldrons hissed with a low, friendly noise that was the closest thing he had ever had to companionable conversation. The chopping of mandrake leaves had a steady rhythm that allowed his thoughts to organize themselves into something that was not panic. He had decided several things. He had decided that he was not going to tell Harry on Monday after all. He was going to tell Harry today. The longer he waited, the more Harry would have time to assemble the situation himself. And Harry was many things, many infuriating things, but he was not, despite Snape's long-standing public position on the matter, a stupid boy. The boy had been silent at the dinner table the night before. The Granger girl had been silent. The Weasley boy had not been silent, but the Weasley boy was almost never silent, and his silence was not therefore diagnostic. The Granger girl, however, had looked at him once across the hall in a way that Snape had not cared for. Granger had read the potions chapter. Granger had probably read it twice. Granger was, by Snape's estimate, somewhere between 3 and 7 hours away from working out exactly what had been on the parchment. And whatever Granger worked out, Granger always told Potter. He would tell the boy this afternoon. He had decided also that he was going to stop calling the boy Potter in his own head. This was a decision of approximately the difficulty of moving a cathedral. He had been calling him Potter in his head for 15 years, the same way he had called the father Potter, the same way he had hissed Potter across the great hall when the father had hexed him in 5th year. The name Potter had been the syllable for everything in his life that had been done to him without his consent. It was going to take a very great act of will to stop, even silently. He set himself to the great act of will. Harry, he thought. The cauldron hissed. Harry. The mandrake leaf went into the cauldron with a small plip. Harry, Harry, Harry. The name, used 3 times in succession in a head that had spent 15 years not using it, did not feel any less appalling. He set down the knife. He pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes. He stood there for a minute. He had also decided one further thing. He had decided that he was going to ask Dumbledore, this afternoon, before he went to find the boy, to release a particular memory back to him. Lily had given Dumbledore 3 memories in the spring of 1980. She had told Dumbledore, Snape did not know this, but he had inferred it, that the memories were to be released to no one without her express permission, and that her express permission was to be assumed if she was dead, and the secret had become impossible to keep. The first memory was the conversation in which she had told Dumbledore that the child was Snape's. The second memory was, Snape suspected of the night with Snape itself, although he did not want to think about Lily having put that into a pensive and he would not look at it. The third memory was a letter, or the remembering of a letter. Lily's habit had been to draft letters in her head while walking and then to think the draft into a pensive before writing it down, so that the words would not be lost if she was interrupted. The third memory was, Snape was reasonably certain, a letter to him. To Severus, never sent. He wanted that memory. He wanted it because he needed something to give the boy. He needed something that was Lily in Lily's voice that he could put in the boy's hand and say, "Here, this is your mother. She made me a thing I am not equipped to be, but here are her words about it, and she did not hate you for it, and she did not hate me for it, and you should have her in this matter even if you cannot have her in any other." He set the knife down. He covered the cauldron with its lid. He took off the protective apron and hung it on its peg. He went to find Albus Dumbledore. It was nearly 1 o'clock when Snape came back down through the school. He did not go to his dungeon. He went instead to his private rooms on the lower floor of the south wing, because what he had in his pocket was not something he wanted to handle in a place where students could open the door without knocking. In his pocket was a small glass vial with a silver stopper, and inside the vial was the swirling pearl-colored mist of a memory. Dumbledore had, of course, not argued. Dumbledore had stood up from his desk, walked to the cabinet on the back wall, taken down a small wooden box with 3 vials in it, and handed Snape one of the 3. "This is the third," Dumbledore had said. "I have not viewed it. It was hers to give." And he had pressed the vial into Snape's hand with a gravity that was not, for once, the polished gravity of Albus Dumbledore the headmaster, but something quieter and older. Snape sat at his table. He set the vial in front of him. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he stood, went to the cupboard under the window, and lifted out the shallow stone basin he kept there. The pensive was old and he had stolen it, in some sense. It had been in his mother's family, and his mother's family had left it to her. And his father had not been told about it because his father would have sold it for drink. It had come to Snape through her, and he had kept it because there were a small number of memories he himself could not bear to keep in his head all the time. He set the pensive on the table. He uncorked the vial. He tipped the pearl-colored mist into the basin. The mist swirled and settled and became, at the bottom of the basin, a small clear scene. He could see, in miniature, a kitchen. A kitchen with a copper kettle on a hob and a yellow curtain at the window, and a kitchen table with an ink bottle and a pot of marigolds on it. He recognized the kitchen. He recognized the curtain. The kitchen had been Lily's kitchen in the cottage in Godric's Hollow, which had been the cottage where she had died. He took a breath. He bent over the basin. He fell, the way you fell into a pensive memory, the small lurch in the stomach, the cold feeling of falling without falling, the resolution of the world into a place you were standing in but could not affect. He landed in the kitchen, and he stood by the kitchen table, and he watched the woman at the table. She was sitting in the lamplight in a green dressing gown with her red hair down. She was not pregnant yet, or she was very early. Her stomach was flat under the dressing gown. She had a cup of tea in front of her and an ink pot and a quill and a sheet of parchment. She was writing. He watched her hand move. She wrote slowly. She paused often. She crossed out a line twice. She lifted the quill and put it down. She looked once at the dark window beyond the table as if checking whether anyone was looking back. No one was looking back. She bent her head again and she went on writing. The handwriting was hers. He had seen it in her school books. He had seen it on the labels of jars she used to keep on her bedroom shelf when they were children. He knew it as well as he knew his own, perhaps better. She was speaking out loud, very softly, as she wrote, the old habit she'd had at school of murmuring to her quill so the words would land right. He stepped forward and bent his head and listened. "Severus," she was saying in the murmur, "if you are reading this, then I have either died or I have lost my nerve, and either way I am sorry, because this is something you should have heard from me face to face, and now you are hearing it from a piece of paper." He stood very still. "I am pregnant. I have known for 9 days. I have not told James yet. I have not told anyone. I am telling you first because I have spent the 9 days trying to convince myself it does not matter who the father is, and I cannot convince myself. And so I will tell you, and then I will tell James, and then I will tell Albus, and then we will arrange a life that fits the truth." She paused. She wrote. She crossed out the next line and started again. "I do not know what you will want. I do not know what I will want. I know that you do not love me the way I think you do. I know you love an idea of me from when we were children, and I know that idea is mostly not me. And I know that I do not love you the way you think I do. And I know that what we did in October was a bad and a stupid and a beautiful thing, and I would not undo it, but I will not do it again. I am married. I love my husband. He is a better man than either of us has yet given him credit for. I do not know whether he will keep me when I tell him. I think he will. I think James is. I think James is much more like his father than he likes to admit, and his father was a kind man and a fool for love, and I think he will be a fool for me." Snape, standing by the table in a memory he was watching 10 years too late, made a small wordless sound. Lily, of course, did not look up. Lily was writing. "If James keeps me, then the child will be Potter, and the child will be safe. Safer than the child would be in your house, Severus, and we both know it, and I will not pretend otherwise out of kindness to you. Voldemort will not look for a Potter child as he will look for a Snape child. You are useful to him. He will want any son of yours. He has already started to suspect there is a child coming somewhere. A Potter child is one threat. A Snape Potter child is two." She set the quill down. She rubbed her eye with the heel of her hand. She picked the quill up again. "I am going to ask you to do a hard thing, Severus. I am going to ask you to never know. I am going to ask Albus to keep this from you. I will give him the memory of telling him so that, if I die, he will not be able to convince himself I never said it. I will give him the memory of October so that, if you ever ask him, he will be able to give you the proof. And I will give him this letter, which I am going to fold and put in his hand the next time I see him, with instructions to do with it as he sees fit. I do not know if I am right. I do not know if any of this is right. I know I am frightened. I know I love my child already, and the child is not yet the size of a walnut. I know that if I die and the child lives, the child will need protection that comes from many people, and one of those people will be you, whether or not you know whose blood is in him, because you are loyal to me, Severus, and it is the worst and the best thing about you. If you are reading this, I am sorry. Be kind to him. Be kind to yourself. I was going to say be brave, but you are always brave. You have never not been brave, and bravery is not what either of you is going to need most. Be patient. With him. With yourself. I think you will find that the boy is worth it. I have not met him yet, and I already know he is worth it. I love you in the way that I love you, which is the way one loves a brother who has been very stupid for a very long time. It is not a small love. It is not the love you have wanted from me. It is what I have, and I give it to you with both hands. Lily." She set the quill down. She read the letter through once slowly. She nodded once to herself. She folded the parchment. She did not put it in an envelope. She held it in her hand for a moment and looked at it, and then she sighed and she walked across the kitchen to the little stone fireplace, and she squatted down and she fed the parchment into the fire, and she watched it catch, and she watched it burn, and when it was ash she stood up and she dusted her hands. "Right," she said aloud in the empty kitchen. "I'll write him a real one in the morning." Snape, watching, understood. She had not written it in the morning. She had not written it ever. The letter she had just burned was the letter she had given to Dumbledore, given as a memory, the words in her head, the act of writing them out captured in the pensive and never made flesh. She had thought it. She had not sent it. The only place in the world that letter had ever existed was inside her own remembering of having written it, and she had handed that remembering to the headmaster and asked him to keep it safe. He stood in the kitchen and he watched her go upstairs. He stood in the kitchen for a long time after she was gone. When he stepped back out of the pensive, the stone basin felt suddenly very far away, and he was sitting in his own chair in his own rooms with his hands on the arms of the chair and his cheeks were wet. He let them be wet for a moment. There was no one to see. He thought, be patient. He thought, I am not patient. I have never been patient. I am the most impatient man in this castle, Dumbledore included. He thought very clearly, I will have to learn. He stood up. He capped the empty vial. He put the pensive back in the cupboard. He washed his face at the basin in the corner of the room and dried it on a clean towel, and he put on his outer robe and he went out, because he had a meeting with a 15-year-old in roughly 2 hours, and he wanted to know exactly what he was going to say to him. He got, in the event, no chance to plan it. He was halfway down the corridor outside his rooms when a voice called his name from behind him, and he turned and he saw, to his enormous and inconvenient surprise, Hermione Granger alone standing at the top of the staircase with her arms full of books. Professor Snape. He looked at her. He waited. Sir, I wonder if I could ask you a question about yesterday. You may not. Sir, please, just one question. I'm not asking what you saw on the parchment. I am asking whether you intend to tell Harry what was on the parchment, because Harry has an interview with Professor Umbridge at 4 o'clock, and Professor Umbridge has heard about the dismissal of the class, and I think she is going to ask Harry questions about it, sir, and I think Harry is going to answer them as honestly as he can, because Harry is not very good at lying to authority figures even when he very much wants to be. And if there is something Harry should know about himself before he sits in front of her, sir, I think he should know it before 4 o'clock. Snape stared at her. He had been about to send her away. He found himself instead taking 3 steps back along the corridor towards her and looking down at her and saying, very carefully, "Where is Potter now?" "In the common room, sir. With Ron, we are waiting for 4 o'clock. Bring him to my office, now, both of you, and the Prophet article that ran last week about Educational Decree 39, and anything else you have read about the High Inquisitor's authority over student questioning. I want it on my desk in 15 minutes. Sir." "You are correct, Miss Granger. He should know before 4 o'clock. I would rather have told him in some other way. We are not, however, going to have the luxury." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." Turned. She ran. She ran with her arms still full of books and the books bouncing dangerously and her hair streaming behind her, and Snape stood in the corridor and watched her go and thought with reluctant and considerable respect that one is going to run a small country one day and the small country will be the better for it. He went down to his dungeon office. He stood at his desk. He took the parchment out of his pocket. He laid it flat. He set a stone on the corner so it would not curl. He sat down in his chair, and he set both hands on the desk, and he waited, and the waiting was the worst 11 minutes of his life. The knock on the door, when it came, was Hermione's. He recognized it. Hermione was the only person in the school who knocked in that particular brisk 3-tap pattern, and she had been doing it on his door for 5 years. "Enter." The door opened. Harry came in first. Hermione came in behind him with an armful of books and a roll of parchment, and the look on her face of a person who has already won an argument she has not yet had. She closed the door with her hip. Snape stood up. "Sit down, Potter." Granger set those down on the bench by the door. "You may stay." "Sir, the door locked," Snape said and flicked his wand at it. The lock turned with a small, clean click. And silenced. "We will not be overheard." Harry sat. He sat in the chair on the near side of the desk, the chair he had sat in for innumerable detentions, and Hermione set her books down on the bench and stayed near them, where she could pretend she was not listening if she had to. Snape did not ask her to leave. Snape, in fact, was absurdly grateful for her presence. He had dreaded the prospect of doing this alone with the boy, and it had not occurred to him to bring a third person, and Granger had brought herself. And it was, perhaps, the best gift the universe was going to give him today. He sat down opposite Harry. He looked at the boy. He looked at the green eyes, Lily's eyes, and the dark hair and the stubborn jaw and the small scar on the chin he had given himself falling off a broom in third year. He looked with a cold professional eye at the line of the eyebrow and the shape of the cheekbone and the set of the mouth, and he thought dispassionately, "I should have seen it. The boy has my mother's mouth. The boy has Eileen Prince's mouth, and I have looked at this mouth across a classroom for 5 years, and I have not seen it. I have not allowed myself to see it. Potter," he said, "Sir, what I am about to tell you is not pleasant news. It is not, in fact, news that I have any business delivering, but the alternative is to allow you to be ambushed by it in front of Dolar's Umbridge, and I will not permit that. So I am going to tell you. You are going to listen. You are not going to interrupt until I am finished. You are not going to make any decisions about what to do with the information until you have had at least one full night's sleep. Are we agreed? Sir, are we agreed, Potter?" "Yes, sir." "Good." Snape took a breath. He pulled the parchment out from under the stone. He turned it around so the writing faced Harry. He pushed it across the desk. "Read it," he said. Harry read it. He read it once, read it again. He read it slowly, his eyes tracing each line, and Snape watched his face, and Snape watched the moment the words "Father," SEVERUSTOBISSNAPE registered, and Snape watched the moment after that and the moment after that, and he watched Harry's face go in slow stages from puzzled to disbelieving to white. Harry looked up. He did not say anything at first. He looked at Snape. He looked at the parchment. He looked at Snape again. "This is wrong," Harry said. "It is not wrong. This is wrong. The potion went wrong. Everyone said the potion went wrong. There was too much moonstone. The book says if you put in too much moonstone. The book," Snape said quietly, "says that too much moonstone fixes the writing more permanently. It does not change what the writing says. The writing says what your blood says, Potter. It does not lie. It cannot lie. It is recognized by Gringotts and by the Ministry and by the Wisengamot, and it has not in the history of its use ever produced a false result. Then the potion was tampered with. I brewed it. I brewed it personally. I supervised every cauldron in the room. I was watching Mr. Malfoy's, in particular, with great care, because Mr. Malfoy is many things, but a careful brewer is not one of them. The potion was not tampered with. Then somebody put fake blood on the— You cut your thumb, Potter, on the pestle in my classroom where I was watching. There was no fake blood, there was your blood. Then, Potter, there has to be Harry." The name came out before Snape had decided to use it. He had not used it. He had not in 5 years of knowing the boy ever used it. He used it now, and it landed in the room like a hand laid carefully on a shoulder, and Harry stopped talking. Harry stared at him. There was a silence. "Don't," Harry said. "Don't call me that. All right, don't. All right, Potter." Harry looked down at the parchment. He looked at it for a long time. Hermione from the bench by the door had gone very still. Her hands, Snape noted, were folded in her lap. She was not pretending not to listen. She was bearing witness like a small grave magistrate, and Snape was very glad of it. "My mum," Harry said. "Yes. My mum and you. Once, yes. Once. Once. In the autumn before you were born, he stopped. He started again. We were not together. We were never together. It was a single night, and we had not seen each other in nearly 2 years, and we did not see each other in any meaningful way after, and she was already married to your father. He's my father. He is. James Potter is my father." "Yes," Snape said, and meant it. Yes, he is. Harry's hands had begun to shake. He had set the parchment down on the desk, and he had laid his hands flat next to it, and his hands were shaking the way a person's hands shook when the person was trying very hard to keep them flat. He stared at his own hands. He did not look up. Did he know? He knew, yes. He knew that I was. He knew that you were the biological son of Severus Snape. He knew it from the time your mother knew it. He registered with the ministry as your father 2 weeks after you were born. He chose to be your father, Potter, of his own will, with full knowledge. And nobody told you. They did not tell me either. Until yesterday, I did not know. You didn't, I did not. Harry looked up at last. The green eyes were wet, but the face was dry, and Snape thought, with a strange new tenderness he did not know what to do with, he is too old. He is too old to cry properly. He has been too old to cry properly since he was a very small child, and that is a thing James Potter would have wept over, and a thing Lily would have wept over, and a thing I have failed to weep over for 5 years. You hated me, Harry said. Yes. For 5 years you have hated me. Yes. In front of the whole school, yes. Why? Snape closed his eyes for a moment. He opened them. He chose his words. Because, he said, you were the living evidence that your mother had not loved me the way I wanted her to love me. Because you had her eyes and you wore them in a face I had spent 15 years calling Potter's face. Because Voldemort believed and believes that I am his servant. And because Albus Dumbledore needed Voldemort to believe it, and because the simplest way to maintain the belief was for me to be seen in public, to despise the boy that Voldemort was hunting. And because I did despise you, Potter, I genuinely did, for reasons that turn out to have been the most catastrophic self-deception of my life, and I am sorry. The word landed heavily. Harry stared at him. You're sorry, Harry said. Yes. You're sorry. Yes. You are sorry that you have spent 5 years, Potter, calling me an arrogant little Burke in front of Potter. And you are sorry. Yes, Snape said. I am sorry. That is not enough. I am aware. That is not enough, sir. I am very aware, Potter. I am not offering it as a payment. I am offering it as a fact. I have been a great deal worse to you than I knew. And I would not have been if I had known. And the fact that I would not have been if I had known does not retroactively make me a man you owe anything to. I am informing you of a piece of arithmetic. I am not asking you to do anything with it. Harry stood up. He did it slowly. He pushed the chair back. He stood and he picked up the parchment and he held it for a moment in his hand and he looked at Snape and his green eyes were very bright. I want to keep this. It is yours. And I want to, he stopped. I want to think about it. I want to, you may take all the time you need. I have to be in Umbridge's office in 2.5 hours. You will not be in Umbridge's office in 2.5 hours. Miss Granger and I are going to write a letter that you will deliver to her in your stead. You have been taken ill. You are unable to attend. The matter of the dismissal of the class will be addressed by me in writing to the Inquisitor and the headmaster. You are not to worry about it. You are not to be in that woman's office today. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Go to Gryffindor Tower, go to bed, sleep if you can, lie quietly if you cannot, eat. Do not go to dinner, Miss Granger will bring you something. Read if it helps. Do not write any letters tonight. I am going to write to your godfather. I am going to write to him myself, with the headmaster's permission, and I am going to ask him to come to the school as soon as he can be brought safely. He should hear this from me, not from you, not in a letter from you. You're going to tell Sirius. I am, he will react badly. Yes, I am prepared for that. He has many reasons to react badly, and one of them is now considerably more substantial than the others, and I am not afraid of him, Potter. I have never been afraid of him. He may shout at me as much as he likes. He will not, in the end, be more angry with me than I am with myself. Go. Harry went. He went carrying the parchment. He went without looking back. He went past Hermione, who reached out and touched his sleeve briefly as he passed, the lightest of touches, and Harry took her hand for a second and let it go and kept walking. The door closed behind him. Snape sat for a long moment at his desk. He did not move. Hermione cleared her throat. "Sir, Miss Granger, I don't know what to say." "Then do not say it." "Yes, sir." A pause. "Sir, may I do one thing?" "What?" She crossed the room. She picked up the chair Harry had been sitting in. She set it back neatly against the wall, and she came to stand in front of his desk, and she said very quietly, "Sir, you should eat something. There is bread and cheese in the kitchens. I'll bring it." "Stay here, I'll bring it." Snape looked at her. He had not eaten anything since Friday morning. He had not noticed. "Thank you, Miss Granger." "You're welcome, sir." She went. He sat at his desk. The parchment was gone. The boy had taken it. And the sun outside the high window had begun to slant westward. And somewhere in the castle his son was walking up to Gryffindor Tower with the news of his own life folded in his hand. And Severus Snape, who had spent 15 years not weeping, sat in his chair and put his face in his hands and did, for a small, undignified, private moment, weep, because Hermione Granger had offered to bring him bread and cheese. He had known her for 5 years. He had called her an insufferable little know-it-all not 3 weeks ago in front of her peers. She had brought him bread and cheese. It is, he thought, extraordinary what people will do for each other if you give them the smallest excuse to. Harry made it as far as the 4th floor landing before his legs decided they were not going to do any more stairs. He sat down on the top step of the landing. He set the parchment on his knees. He stared at it. He did not really see it. He thought, "My mum slept with Snape." He thought, "Snape is my dad." He thought, "Number James is my dad. James is my dad. My mum loved James. James died for us. James died in the doorway holding a wand he hadn't drawn yet. James died trying to give my mum and me time. James is my dad." He thought, "But Snape is my father." He thought, "What is the difference between a dad and a father?" He thought about it. He thought about it for a while. He thought, "A dad is the man who chooses you. A father is the man whose blood is in you. A dad and a father are sometimes the same person and sometimes not." He sat on the landing and he thought, "I have a dad. I have always had a dad. James is my dad. He has always been my dad and he will always be my dad, and a piece of vellum cannot undad him." He thought, "But I also have a father. I also have a father, and the father is Snape. And Snape has been a complete bastard to me for 5 years. And Snape has just told me that he is sorry, and Snape has just said, he said, I am informing you of a piece of arithmetic. I am not asking you to do anything with it. And no one has ever said anything that grown-up to me before in my whole life, because grown-ups always want me to do something with what they tell me. They always want me to be brave or quiet or impressed or grateful or," he thought. "Snape didn't ask me to do anything." He thought, "Snape said he was sorry, and he didn't ask me for anything in exchange for the apology." He thought, "That is the first apology I have ever received in my entire life that did not come with a price tag." He sat on the landing for a very long time. He thought of Sirius. He thought of Sirius, who was about to be told by Snape in a letter what the parchment said. He thought of Sirius's face. He thought of how Sirius would react. Sirius would, Harry suspected, try to kill Snape. Harry was surprised, sitting on the landing, to find that he did not want Sirius to kill Snape. He had spent 5 years quietly, idly, fantasizing about somebody killing Snape. He had imagined Snape eaten by hippogriffs. He had imagined Snape pickled by his own potions. He had imagined Snape drowned in his own cauldron. He had not in any of those fantasies ever felt the small pang he was now feeling in his chest at the thought of Snape, alone in a dungeon office, opening Sirius's reply. He stood up. He folded the parchment. He put it inside his shirt against his skin. He went slowly up to Gryffindor Tower. Ron looked up when he came through the portrait hole. Ron took one look at his face and said, without any preamble at all, "Right, bed, now. I'll get Hermione to bring you something. You look like you've been hit by a horse." Harry tried to smile. "Thanks, Ron. What's wrong, mate?" "I'll tell you," Harry said. "I will tomorrow, or soon I will. Just not today. Is that all right?" "Course it's all right." Ron stood up. He clapped Harry on the shoulder once gently. "Come on, up the stairs." He took Harry up the stairs. He sat with him for a minute on the edge of the bed. He did not ask anything. He did not need to ask anything. He pulled the curtains around the four-poster when he left, and Harry lay down in his clothes. And he heard Ron's footsteps go down the staircase. And he heard them stop at the bottom. And he heard them come back up. And he heard Ron put a glass of water on the bedside table and go back down again without a word. Harry put his hand inside his shirt. He felt the parchment against his skin. He thought, "I am going to give him a chance." He thought, "I do not know yet what kind of chance, or how big a chance, or for how long, but I am going to give him a chance. Because nobody has ever apologized to me before without wanting something for it, and the man who finally did it owes me 15 years and is walking around like he knows it, and I am not yet a person who can throw that away." He thought, "And if Sirius wants to kill him, I am going to have to stop Sirius." The thought sat in the dark of the four-poster with him. He did not, as it turned out, sleep that afternoon, but he lay quiet and he breathed, and he listened to the tower going on around him. And at some point Hermione brought him a sandwich and a cup of tea, and sat on the foot of the bed for a minute and said nothing at all. And Harry ate the sandwich, and Hermione touched his ankle once through the blanket, and went away. And the afternoon turned slowly into evening, and the sky outside the dormitory window went from the color of gray slate to the color of slate that had been put on a fire, and Harry was, for the first time since the potion had spilled, almost calm. 3 floors below, a potions master sat at his desk and wrote a letter to a man who had hated him for 20 years, beginning with the words black. "What I have to tell you concerns Harry. Read on or burn this, I leave it to you. SS," and signed it and sealed it and gave it to a school owl, and watched the owl fly out of the high arched window into a sky the color of slate on a fire. And he stood at the window for a long time after the owl was a black dot and then a smaller black dot and then nothing at all. He thought, "I have done one true thing today." It was not, he discovered, very much. It was, however, more than he had managed any day for 15 years. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. The Auror's daughter, the school owl, came back at 3:20 on Sunday morning with no letter on its leg and a small, distinct singe mark on its tail feathers. Snape was awake to receive it. He had not been to bed. He was sitting at his desk with the same untouched cup of black coffee from the previous afternoon and a fresh sheet of parchment in front of him. And he had been writing, in a neat, steady hand, what he intended to be a short list of things to tell the boy on Monday. The circumstances of the autumn of '79, the structure of the adoption, the precise nature of his oath to Dumbledore, the distinction, for he wished to be very clear about this distinction between biological father and parent. He had got as far as item 3 when the owl tapped at the window. He let it in. The owl flew once around the room, clearly insulted, and landed on the corner of the desk. It held out the empty leg in a way that managed to convey reproach. "Ah," Snape said. He gave it a strip of dried meat from the jar he kept for visiting owls. The owl took the meat and gave him a long, pointed look that said, "You will not, in future, be sending me anywhere near that man," and flew out again. Snape sat down. He looked at the small, singed feathers on the windowsill. He thought about what shape Sirius Black had chosen to express his views in. Had he burned the letter unopened? Had he burned it after reading? Had he set fire to the owl in transit? The last seemed unlikely, since the owl had returned. The first seemed likely on grounds of temperament. The second was the one Snape was choosing to hope for, on the grounds that hope was free. He drank some of the cold coffee. It tasted the way petrol smelled. He went back to the list. Sirius Black arrived at Hogwarts at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, in a flying motorcycle that he had borrowed from Hagrid, in a state of furious, jet-eyed sobriety, with a copy of Snape's letter in his coat pocket folded down to the size of a playing card. He landed on the lawn in front of the castle, in a way that woke up 19 first-years and one indignant centaur, who happened to be passing through the grounds on a forest errand. He killed the engine with a brutal twist of the throttle, swung off, and walked up to the front doors with the long strides of a man who had not, in many years, had a destination he wanted to reach quite this much. The doors did not open for him. Sirius pounded on them with the side of his fist. The doors opened. Filch was on the other side with Mrs. Norris in his arms and an expression of unholy delight, because Filch had not had a chance to deny entry to a known fugitive in years and had been hoping for one. "You're not on the list." "I am on the list," Sirius said, with great evenness. "Albus put me on the list at 6 o'clock this morning. By Owl. Get out of my way, Argus, I am not in a mood." "The list," Filch said with relish, "has not been updated to reflect any move," Sirius said. Filch moved. Sirius went up through the school, taking the staircases 2 at a time. He did not look at the portraits, who watched him pass with the avid interest portraits reserved for unscheduled drama. He did not look at the suits of armor. He went straight to the dungeons, because Snape's letter had given the dungeon office as the place at which Sirius would find him. And Sirius had read the letter and reread the letter and screamed at the letter and crumpled the letter and uncrumpled the letter and read it a third time. And the third time he had stopped screaming. And the fourth time he had sat down at the kitchen table at Grimmauld Place with his head in his hands. And he had realized, with the cold clarity of a man who had been in Azkaban, that Snape was not lying. Snape did not lie about important things. Snape lied prolifically, viciously, and as a matter of professional necessity. But Snape did not lie about important things, because Snape was not equipped for it. Snape's whole personality was constructed around the inadmissible truth, which made him quite incapable of inventing inadmissible falsehoods. If Snape had taken the trouble to write Sirius Black a letter about Lily and a child, then there was a child and the child was Snape's, and Sirius had 30 years of practice in understanding things he did not want to understand, and he did not have the energy this morning to lie to himself about the obvious. He understood the obvious. He hated the obvious. He hated the obvious very, very much, and he hated specifically the implication of the obvious, which was that James, his brother in everything but blood, had carried this for 16 years and not told him. That was the part he could not yet bear. He reached Snape's office. He shoved the door open. It was unlocked. Snape had unlocked it, presumably knowing he was coming. Snape was at his desk. He stood up slowly when Sirius came in, and he did not draw his wand. Sirius shut the door behind him with the side of his boot. He stood in the middle of the office. He looked at Snape. He had imagined on the long flight from London that he would punch the man immediately and ask questions afterwards. He had pictured the punch with great clarity. He had decided which knuckle would land first. He found in the moment that he could not punch a man who was already standing very still with his hands at his sides and his face the color of cold ash. "You absolute bastard," Sirius said. "Sit down." "I am not going to sit down." "Then stand. Whichever you prefer. But lower your voice. The school is awake." Sirius lowered his voice. It came out as a hiss, which was, in some ways, worse. "You wrote me a letter. You wrote me a letter, with a postscript. You wrote Black, what I have to tell you concerns Harry. Read on or burn this. I leave it to you. SS. That's how you opened it. SS as if you and I correspond. As if you and I are colleagues who have a child in common. Do you have any idea what Snape? Do you have any idea? I have, yes. You have no idea. You have no idea what it was like to read that. You have no. Do you have a chair I can hit? I do not. There is a wall behind you. Hit that. I would prefer you did not put your fist through the door, however. It is a fine old door. Sirius hit the wall. He hit it with the flat of his palm hard. The torches in their brackets shivered. A small fall of dust came down from the ceiling. He stood for a moment with his palm against the stone and his eyes shut. "Lily," he said, "yes. In 79. Yes, you and Lily in 79. Yes, Black." And James knew. And James knew, Black. James knew before I knew. James adopted the boy. James filed the paperwork. James paid the registration fee. James told no one, as far as I have been able to determine, and certainly not you, because Lily had asked him not to tell you. Because Lily was apparently of the view that if you ever found out, you would attempt to throttle me on a public street, and that this would attract attention which it was thought desirable to avoid. Sirius opened his eyes. "That's a long sentence, Snape. It is a long story, Black, I'm attempting to compress." Sirius laughed once harshly because there was nothing else to do with what was rising up his throat. "Compress, compress, right, compress." He turned. He came over and sat down, not in the visitor's chair, but on the edge of Snape's desk, sideways, his boots on the visitor's chair, and he looked at Snape from 1.5 feet away, and he said, much more quietly, "Does he know?" "Harry." "Yes, Snape, Harry, you think I'm asking about the cat. He knows. I told him yesterday afternoon. Yesterday. How badly Granger was there. He behaved with considerably more grace than I had any right to. He took the parchment. He went up to his dormitory. I have not seen him since." "Is he?" "He is, as well as can be expected. Granger has been with him. Weasley, he ate. He was sleeping when last reported." Sirius looked at him. His gray eyes had a cold clarity that Snape had not seen in them in years. "And what did you tell him?" Sirius said. "I told him the truth. All of it. Most of it. I told him the relationship between his mother and me was a single occasion, that we had not been together before or after, that James had known, that James had chosen to be his father, that I had not known until Friday afternoon. I told him the headmaster had been informed in 1980 and had kept the secret at his mother's request. I told him, 'Did you tell him you've been a bastard to him for 5 years?' 'Yes.' 'Did you say the word?' I said I am sorry, twice. Perhaps 3 times. I do not remember. I was not at my best. Did he believe you?" "I do not know, Black. Ask him." "I am going to ask him." Sirius stood up off the desk. He stretched his shoulders the way a man stretches his shoulders before a long walk. "I am going to ask him a great many things, and then I am going to come back here, and you and I, Snape, are going to have a much longer conversation than this one. I look forward to it. Don't be glib." "I am not being glib. I am at the moment incapable of glibness. I am attempting plain speech. It is very difficult for me. You will find I am bad at it." Sirius looked at him. He was very much not the Snape of memory. Snape of memory had been an oily, sneering boy in 2 large robes with a hex on his lips and a grudge in his hand. Snape in front of him was a tired man, with an unwashed neck and shadows the color of bruises under his eyes, who had not slept in 2 days and who was, Sirius noticed with a private start, holding his shoulders the way a man held them when he was waiting for someone to hit him, and had decided in advance not to hit back. It made Sirius angrier. It made him angrier in a way that was not useful, because it was not the anger of a fight. It was the anger of a man who had been given, against his will, a small and unwelcome view of a person he had spent 2 decades successfully reducing to a cartoon. "I'll come back," Sirius said. "After I see Harry, I will come back. I shall be here." "You'd better be." He left. He did not slam the door because the office had finally given him a piece of information he did not want, and it would have felt childish to slam the door in protest. He shut the door softly. He went up through the school. He did not run. Harry was in the common room by the fire when Sirius came through the portrait hole. The fat lady, Harry would learn later, had nearly fainted. Sirius had given her a password he no longer had any business knowing, And the fat lady had decided that, as Harry was the only person present and had asked for him by name, there was no harm in opening up. Harry stood up so fast he knocked his book off the arm of the chair. "Serious, I kid." They stood there a moment on either side of the hearthrug, neither sure whether they were doing the long-armed hug thing or the silent staring at each other thing. They tried both. They ended up in something that was halfway between the two. Sirius with one arm around Harry's shoulders, Harry's forehead against Sirius's collarbone, Sirius's other hand gripping the back of Harry's hair the way a man grips the rope of a boat he is afraid will float away. "You all right?" Sirius said into the top of Harry's head. "Number all right, fair, fair." A pause. "Snape, don't just sit down, please." Sirius sat down. He sat down on the hearthrug of all places. There was a perfectly good armchair behind him, and he patted the rug next to him, and Harry sat down beside him with his arms around his knees, and they sat looking into the fire like two boys at a campfire, and the common room around them was empty because it was early on a Sunday morning and no one in Gryffindor Tower was awake yet who hadn't been forced to be. Harry said, after a while, "He told you." "He told me." "By owl." "I came as soon as I could." You read it." "I read it 3 times, I screamed, I burned it, I unburned it. I'm afraid the owl took some damage. Do you forgive me?" Yes, the owl will live." "Good. That's the most important thing," Sirius sighed. He tipped his head back against the side of the armchair. Harry, I know. My ridiculous boy, ridiculous. I'm not ridiculous. I'm just the same person. I'm the same person I was on Thursday. The vellum doesn't. No, it doesn't. Of course it doesn't." Sirius dropped his head forward. He put his face in his hands. He laughed once without humor into his palms. "I am Harry. I am furious. With me, Harry, not with you, never with you, with James. With Dad, with your dad. Why? Because he didn't tell me. He could have told me and he didn't tell me. He didn't tell me when you were born. He didn't tell me when he and Lily took out the protective charm registration. He didn't tell me at his stag night. He didn't tell me when we all sat in a cellar in Marlene's house in September of 1981. And he was crying into his beer, and I asked him what was wrong, and he said nothing, Padfoot, nothing, just tired. He didn't tell me. He is in the ground, and he didn't tell me. I am furious with him, and I am furious with Lily, and I am furious with myself, Harry. Because I had a brother for 12 years, and there was a thing about him that I did not know, and a thing about him that he was carrying, and I did not see it. I sat in his house. I bounced you on my knee. I knew you when you were 3 days old. There were photographs of you on the mantelpiece, and I looked at them, and I never once thought that I looked like Snape. Sirius made a noise. You don't look like Snape. Hermione thinks I look like Snape's mother. I don't know who Snape's mother is. I'm going to ask, eventually. Sirius dropped his hands. He looked at Harry. His gray eyes were wet at the corners, but he was not quite crying. You're handling this, he said, remarkably well, kid. I'm not handling it. I'm just sitting here. The handling part comes later. I think I'm going to be very strange about it for a long time, and then one day I'll wake up and it'll have settled. That is a terrifyingly mature plan, Harry. Hermione gave it to me. Sirius laughed. It was a real laugh this time, a small one. Hermione gave it to you, of course she did. They sat for a minute. Sirius, Harry said. Yeah. Are you my godfather still? Sirius's head turned sharply. What kind of question is that? You were my dad's friend. James was my dad. James adopted me. James named you. If James isn't biologically my Harry, stop. I just want to stop. Sirius reached out. He took Harry by the shoulders. He turned Harry to face him. Listen to me. James Potter was your father. He stood in for you in front of a registrar, and he signed his name, and he gave you his name, and he raised you for 15 months, and he died in a doorway protecting you with a wand he hadn't even drawn. James Potter is your father. I do not give a damn what a piece of vellum says. I do not give a damn what Snape says. James is your father. He named me your godfather. I am your godfather. I will be your godfather until they put me in the ground, and I will be your godfather after they put me in the ground, Harry. You cannot ungodfather me even if you want to. I am yours. I am stuck with you and you are stuck with me, and a piece of paper from chapter 12 of a potions book does not change anything between you and me, does it? Does it? Number, say it. It doesn't. Sirius. Good. Sirius let go of his shoulders. He pulled Harry into a one-armed hug hard. He did not let go for a while. Good, right, that's settled then. They sat for another minute. The fire popped. Sirius. Yeah. Snape, yeah. He didn't know until Friday. He genuinely didn't know. I think you're right. I think I read his letter. He didn't know. I could tell. And he said sorry. He said sorry without asking for anything. He said it. Sirius was quiet a moment. He's been an absolute monster to you. I know. For 5 years. I know. And now, Harry said, he's saying sorry, and he's not asking me to forgive him. He told me that, Sirius. He said, I am not asking you to do anything with it. And Sirius, I don't know what to do with the fact that he's the only adult who's ever spoken to me like that. Sirius exhaled. He let his head rest briefly against the side of the armchair. Yeah, he said after a moment. Yeah, Harry, I know what you mean. You do. I do. Harry, I am going to say something to you, and I do not want you to ever tell anyone I said it. I will deny it under Veritaserum. I will go to Azkaban a second time before admitting it. Do you swear? I swear. Snape is, in his own way, sometimes capable of genuine decency. I have been at pains to forget this fact for 22 years, because admitting it interferes with my hobbies. He has, for example, brewed potions for the Order this year that have saved at least 3 lives, including Tonks's. He has stood in front of Voldemort and told lies that would get him killed if Voldemort sniffed them. He is brave, Harry, in a way that no one but Dumbledore properly appreciates, and he is brave specifically about things that do not get him any credit. He is not a good man in the full bright meaning of good, but he is occasionally a man who does the hard right thing when the easy wrong thing is offered to him. Apologizing to you when he could have said nothing, that is a hard right thing. I am, Harry, I am not going to forgive him. I am not. He hung me and James out to dry in too many other ways, but I am not going to ask you not to. That is your business, yours and his. You're being really mature about this. I am being briefly mature. It will not last. By tomorrow morning I will be back to wanting to set him on fire. Make the most of it. Harry laughed. It came out small and slightly wet. Sirius pulled him in again. He kissed the top of his head, a quick rough press of mouth that was so much like a thing James had done in Harry's earliest, half-imagined memories that Harry's eyes burned. You all right, kid? Yeah, me neither. Want some breakfast? Yeah, come on then, let's go see what the kitchens have. How selves love me, they think I'm dashing. Are you dashing? I am, in fact, enormously dashing. I have been on a wanted poster. Wanted posters are extremely dashing. Have you ever met a man who was wanted in 7 countries? Not until this morning. Well, there you are, dashing. They went down to the kitchens together. They ate scrambled eggs. The house elves did, in fact, love Sirius and brought him a second helping unasked. Harry watched him eat. Sirius caught him at it. What? Nothing. I'm glad you came. Yeah, kid, yeah, I'm glad I came too. By Sunday afternoon, a number of things had happened in roughly the following order. First, Dolar's Umbridge had received the letter Snape had sent on Saturday. A letter so coldly perfect in its bureaucratic language that even she, who knew the genre intimately, could not at first identify the small, precise way in which she was being insulted. The letter informed her that Mr. Potter had been taken acutely ill on Saturday afternoon. Madame Pomfrey, by then, had been spoken to and would, if pressed, confirm a delicate constitution and a temperature of 101. That Professor Snape, as the master of the lesson in question, would address any questions concerning the dismissal of his fifth-year class directly to the High Inquisitor, in writing, by Monday evening, and that any further communication regarding Mr. Potter's health or attendance ought to proceed through Madame Pomfrey, who was the relevant medical authority. The letter was 4 paragraphs long. It contained no insults. It also contained no concession of any kind whatever, which was, Umbridge eventually realized, rereading it for the 3rd time, the insult. She put the letter down on her desk. She arranged the blotter. She arranged the kitten plates on the wall, which were already arranged. She poured herself a cup of tea, and she sat at her desk, and she began to compose in her head the necessary 3 educational decrees to address the loophole Snape had just exposed. Decree 41. Any student excused from disciplinary interview by a member of staff shall provide such excuse in person within 12 hours of recovery. Decree 42. Any complaint regarding classroom dismissal shall be addressed to the High Inquisitor directly by the relevant student, not by the relevant master. Decree 43. She would think of something for 43. She felt encouraged. She liked decrees. They were tidy. They were a way of putting the world in straight lines. She drank her tea. She thought about the boy. She thought about Snape. She thought with the particular intensity she reserved for problems she felt she had been unfairly handed. He is hiding something. Why is he hiding something? She did not yet know what she did not yet know. She would, however, find out. She had time. She had decrees. She had, above all, the patience of a person who has been told all her life that her instincts about people were very small and very wrong, and who had decided in middle age that her instincts had in fact been very large and very right, and that the wrongness had been in the world. Second, Sirius and Harry, after breakfast, had been intercepted in the entrance hall by a small witch with a peaked gray hat and a startling smile. "Watch her, Sirius. Watch her, Harry." "Tonks. Don't tonks me. You weren't supposed to fly an unregistered motorcycle into Hogsmeade airspace at 6 o'clock in the morning. The entire Auror department's been on the flu for 2 hours about it. You idiot. What did you think was going? It was an emergency." "Yes, well, the emergency in question," she said, dropping her voice as a passing knot of Hufflepuffs went by, "is also the reason I'm here, and Dumbledore asked me up before the Ministry sent its own people in pursuit of you, and so here I am, and here you are, looking exactly like a man who has flown his godson's bedtime. It's not bedtime. You know what I mean. Harry, hello. Hi, how are you?" "Hi, Tonks, I'm okay. Why are you here?" Tonks looked at him. Her hair today was a mottled gray and blonde, the color of lichen on stone. Her dark eyes were unusually serious in the small heart-shaped face. She glanced at Sirius. Sirius gave her the briefest nod. "I'm here," she said, "because Dumbledore asked an Auror he trusts to come up here and stand next to you for a couple of days while certain administrative things are sorted out. And because there is a thing you're, Sirius, and you're, Snape and the headmaster and I all think you should do today before tomorrow morning, and we can't do it without an Auror's authorization, and the only Auror in the country who isn't going to file a report about it afterwards is me. Want to take a walk?" "Where?" "Diagon Alley. On a Sunday. Gringotts is open 7 days a week. Goblins do not believe in Sundays. You and I are going to take a flu from the headmaster's office to the leaky. And then we are going to walk down the alley in the brisk, hopeful way of an aunt taking her godson out for a treat. And we are going to go into Gringotts. And we are going to ask them very politely to do an independent lineage verification. Because what was on that vellum yesterday will, with the goblins behind it, become officially you. And then no one, not Umbridge, not Voldemort, not anyone, can claim the test was botched or faked. And then we are going to come straight back. Sirius is staying here. He cannot be seen in the alley. Snape is also staying here. He cannot be seen anywhere with you for reasons we do not at the moment have time to discuss. I am the Auror who is taking you. The headmaster has already cleared it. Yes or number? Harry looked at Sirius. Go, Sirius said. She's right. You want this on record properly. You want it to be a goblin record, not just a piece of parchment in a potions classroom. All right. Good. Tonks took his elbow. And Sirius. Yeah, you, stay. Do not, while I am gone, attempt to leave the castle. Do not get any ideas about strolling down to the village for a pint. Do not turn into a dog and wander. Do not visit anyone. Do not write to anyone. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. Ma'am me again, and I'll bite you. Tonks let go of Harry's elbow long enough to give Sirius a brief, fierce hug. The kind cousins gave each other when no one was around to see. And then she had Harry's elbow again, and they were moving up through the school towards Dumbledore's office. And Sirius was watching them go with the expression of a man who very much wanted to come, and was not going to. The flue deposited them in the leaky cauldron in a small puff of green smoke. Tom the barman looked up from his glasses. He nodded at Tonks. He nodded at Harry. He went on polishing. The alley on a Sunday morning was quieter than on a weekday, but not by much. Witches with shopping baskets, wizards with newspapers, 2 children hauling a struggling pygmy puff along by a string. Tonks set a brisk, unconcerned pace, her hand light on Harry's elbow, and she chattered cheerfully about nothing in particular as they walked. About a band Harry had never heard of, about her mother's kitchen renovation, about a hex Mad-Eye had taught her last Tuesday. And Harry, walking beside her, felt the back of his neck slowly relax for the first time in 2 days. Tonks was very good at this. Tonks was, he realized, doing it on purpose. Tonks, how much do you know? The headmaster told me what I needed to know to do my job today. Which is, I know who your biological father is, I know who knew, I know it's been kept quiet and why, and I know you found out yesterday. I do not know any of the details about anybody, and I do not particularly want to know them. Okay, good. And I'm not going to ask you any questions about it, Harry. You're a kid. You're allowed to not have answers. I'm here as the muscle. Think of me as the muscle. You are the smallest muscle I have ever met, Tonks. I'm wiry. I am extremely wiry. Don't underestimate the wiry. Here we are. The marble facade of Gringotts rose ahead of them. They went up the steps. The bronze doors opened. The silver doors opened. Tonks, who had clearly done this errand before, walked them straight to a side counter where a small, sour-faced goblin sat with a quill and a brass plate, and a sign that said Inheritance and Verifications, BY Appointment. By appointment, the goblin said without looking up. Independent lineage verification. Subject is a minor wizard with a recent adoption of record on file. Auror's authorization, department flagged. No appointment was practical for security reasons. The goblin looked up. He looked at Tonks, he looked at Harry, he looked at Tonks's badge which she had produced from somewhere about her person. Auror Tonks, Goblin Griffook. It is Master Griffook, Auror, we have met last summer in the matter of the bones inheritance. I remember, my apologies, Master Griffook. Accepted. The boy stepped forward. Harry stepped forward. Griffook reached under the counter. He produced a small silver knife, a clean square of vellum, and a stoppered glass bottle of dark liquid that Harry recognized, with a small shock, as the same potion they had made in class on Friday, but a much darker, much more concentrated version, fixed and bottled and labeled in the precise tidy hand of a Gringotts master brewer. He set them out on the counter. Hold out your hand. Harry held out his hand. Griffook took it. His grip was unexpectedly gentle. The knife was very sharp. Harry barely felt the cut on the pad of his thumb. Griffook took 2 drops of blood onto the vellum, set Harry's hand aside, and tapped the vellum twice with the tip of his quill. Apply, sir. Drop of potion on vellum. You may do it, or I may. Tradition is the subject does it himself. Harry uncorked the bottle. He tipped 1 careful drop onto the blood. The drop hit the vellum, and the parchment did the same thing it had done on Friday. White, still, the slow climb of writing along the fibers in lacquer black ink. The writing settled. The script was different from the school version, denser, with more generations, with the addition of small notations and registry numbers, but the bottom of the chart said in no uncertain calligraphy exactly what Snape's vellum had said. Mother, Lily Jean Evans Potter. Father, Severus Tobias Snape. Guardian of record by adoption, James Charles Potter. Griffith looked at the chart. He looked at Harry. "Mr. Potter," he said. "Yes. This information is, by the laws of Gringotts and the customs of the Goblin Nation, sealed at your request, and not to be released to any third party without your written consent or order of the Wisengamot. Do you wish to lodge a copy with the bank?" "Yes, please." "You will receive a vault deposit reference. Should the matter ever come to dispute, you may produce the reference and the bank will produce the chart. Anything entered into Gringotts' verified ledger may not, by treaty, be controverted by ministry magic. Even the High Inquisitor of Hogwarts," he paused, and his bright black eyes flicked briefly and with considerable amusement to Tonks, "could not, having seen this, declare it false." "Thank you, Master Griffith," Harry said. "You are welcome, Mr. Potter. The fee is 2 galleons. I will accept payment from Auror Tonks, who has the department's account on file." "Always a pleasure," Tonks murmured and put down 2 coins, and Griffith produced a small brass token and pressed it into Harry's palm. "Vault deposit reference. Keep it on your person. Replacement is 1 galleon." "Yes, sir. Good day." They were back out on the steps of Gringotts in 3 minutes. Tonks looked at her pocket watch. "Right. We are going to go and have a very quick ice cream at Fortescue's because I have not let you have one, and also because if anyone is watching us, they will report that we went to Diagon Alley for an ice cream, and that is the cover, and we are now going to make the cover real. Strawberry. Vanilla. Boring, Harry, truly boring. Vanilla it is." She had a chocolate. They sat on a bench in the small square outside the ice cream parlor, and Harry held his cone in one hand and the brass token in the other, and he looked at the brass token for a long time. It was small. It was about the size of a coin. It was warm from his palm. It was, in some real and irritating sense, the proof that Severus Snape was his father, and Harry held it and thought, "I am holding the proof that Severus Snape is my father," and the thought did not, this time, feel like falling. It felt like standing. It was, he realized, the difference between being told a thing and being a person who could, if asked, prove the thing. He had moved in the last hour from victim of revelation to keeper of a fact. The fact was his now. He had a token for it. He could put it in his pocket. He could carry it. He could, if he wanted, walk into Umbridge's office tomorrow morning and lay it on her desk and watch her face do something interesting. He was not going to do that, probably, but he could. "You all right?" Tonks said, watching him out of the corner of her eye. Yeah, Tonks, I think I am actually. Mostly." "Mostly's a good place. Tonks, what's he like?" She paused mid-lick. "Snape." "Yeah," she thought about it. She bit into the bottom of her cone the way only a person who liked a soggy bottom would. "Snape," she said carefully, "is one of the angriest men I have ever met. He is angry at everyone, including himself, and he is angry most of all at the world for not having been the world he wanted it to be when he was 16. He is rude. He is petty. He is an excellent brewer. He is a phenomenally brave spy, and most people don't know it, and he prefers it that way because if they knew he would have to deal with their gratitude. He drinks too much black coffee. He is unmarried. He has no friends in the friend sense, although Dumbledore is something to him I cannot name. He is, in private, capable of great kindness which he immediately ruins by being cutting about it 10 seconds later. I do not like him particularly. I do not dislike him. He is a colleague. I respect his work. I do not know what kind of father he will be. I have an opinion." "What's your opinion?" "My opinion is that he will be a very strange father, Harry. He will make a great many mistakes. He will not stop being rude. He will not stop being petty. He will, however, lay down his life for you without hesitation, and I do not say that of many people. Most people will say it. Most people are wrong. He is one of the few I think will. Harry looked at her. You like him more than you said. Oh, bugger, did I say that out loud? You did. All right, you got me. I like him a little more than I said. I'd thank you to keep it to yourself. I have a reputation to maintain. What's your reputation? Hates everyone, punches hit wizards, doesn't take any of Snape's nonsense, wears interesting hair, etc. You don't punch hit wizards. I want to punch hit wizards. The aspiration is the reputation. Harry laughed. He surprised himself with how much it was a real laugh. They finished their ice creams. They walked back to the leaky. They flew back to the headmaster's office. Dumbledore was at his desk. He stood up when they came in, and Tonks gave him a small report in a low voice while Harry stood by the window, and Harry watched Fawkes preen one wing, and he thought, I have a token in my pocket, and I have a godfather downstairs in the kitchens, and I have a father in the dungeons, and the world has not ended, and I am still me, and the world has not ended. The world had not ended. He turned. He looked at Dumbledore. Sir. Harry. I want to see him. Whom? Snape today, now. Dumbledore looked at him. Are you certain? Yes, now, before I think about it too much. Sirius said I could. Sirius said it was my business. I want to talk to him. I want to ask him things. I just want to see him, while it's still warm. Very well, he is in his office. I will tell Sirius you have gone. Or, Tonks, would you walk Harry down? Yes, sir. And Harry, sir. You may call him whatever you wish, you know. There is no rule. There is no obligation. Father is one possibility, sir is another. Snape is a third. Severus is a fourth. No one in this castle will tell you which to choose. Harry thought about it. I'll choose later, sir. Of course. He went down through the school with Tonks beside him. He did not feel small, although he was small, and the corridors were big, and his shoes made a small, sharp noise on the flags. He felt instead the way he had felt the first time he had walked into Ollivander's. A person walking towards a door behind which something important was waiting for him, and the importance was not frightening exactly, it was just important. Tonks left him at the dungeon corridor. I'll be at the top of the stairs. I'm not going far. Take as long as you need. Thanks, Tonks. Any time, kid. He went down the corridor to Snape's office. He raised his hand. He knocked. The knock was quiet, more polite than firm. Enter. He went in. Snape was at his desk. He stood, this time, more slowly than the day before. He had that day's particular exhaustion in his shoulders, the kind that came of having spent the morning not being punched by Sirius Black. He looked at Harry. His eyes flicked briefly to the closed door behind Harry and back. Potter, sir. Are you? I went to Gringotts. Tonks took me. I did the official one, the lineage thing. I have a token. He took the brass token out of his pocket and put it on the desk. He did not let go of it. He kept his fingers on it. Same result, officially. Snape looked at the token. He looked at Harry. Why are you showing me? I don't know, because you should know. Because I think we're at the part now where we have to keep telling each other things instead of guessing them. I thought you might like to know I'd done it. Snape was silent for a long moment. Sit down, Potter. Yes, sir. He sat. He took his hand off the token. He left it on the desk. Snape looked at the token. He did not touch it. That was sensible. It was Tonks's idea. It was a sensible idea. It is useful. It will be useful. The High Inquisitor will at some point attempt to. I know. I worked it out. Or Hermione worked it out, and I agreed. She thinks Umbridge is going to start asking what was in the parchment. She thinks Umbridge is going to take whatever comes out of any further test and try to use it. She thinks the only way we get ahead of it is to put the test on the Goblin record where Umbridge can't. Granger is correct. Yeah, she usually is. A small, almost silent breath escaped Snape that was the most reluctant chuckle Harry had ever been audience to. Yes, Snape said, she usually is. Harry sat in the chair. He looked at his knees. He looked up. He looked at Snape. Sir. Yes. Sirius came. I am aware. Did he? He shouted. He hit the wall. He sat on the desk. He was, by his standards, considerably restrained. He went to find you. He has evidently found you. He was good about it, about me. He said James was still my dad. He said it didn't matter what the vellum said. James was my dad. James is my dad. James will always be my dad. And he said he was still my godfather. And he said, he stopped. He looked at Snape. He said he wasn't going to forgive you, but he said it was my business, yours and mine, not his. Snape inclined his head slightly. That is more than I deserve from him. He also said you were brave. He said you'd done things for the order that nobody knows about. He said you save people. He said, Black said this. Yes, Black is not in his right mind. I know. He said it anyway. There was a small silence. Snape looked very carefully at the surface of his desk. He did not look at Harry. That was generous of him. Please tell him so. I will. Another silence. Sir. Yes. Can I? There's a question I want to ask, and you don't have to answer. If I don't ask now, I'll ask. Did you love her? Snape did not move. He sat very still. His hands were on the desk. They did not curl into fists. His eyes did not fill. His face did not on any visible surface change. Yes, he said. For how long? Since I was 9 years old. Did she love you? He waited a long time before he answered. Not in the way I wanted her to. Not, I think, in the way you mean. She loved me. I have just yesterday been given a memory in which she described it as the way one loves a brother who has been very stupid for a very long time. It is the most accurate description of her feeling for me I have ever heard. I did not deserve more than that. She loved your father. She loved James. She married him because she loved him. What she had with me was a single mistake, and she paid for it for the rest of her life, and he stopped. He started again. I have paid for it too, in a way I cannot describe. The boy is the proof. The boy is the proof that the love I had for her was not large enough or correct enough to be the love she needed. I am not a romantic figure in this story, Potter. I want you to understand that. I am not the wronged party. I am the man who got what he had no right to want, and your mother and your father bore the cost of it, and I did not even know they were bearing it. Harry looked at him. He did not know what he had been expecting. He had not been expecting this, the careful, surgical honesty of a man who had stopped, for the moment, defending himself. He had not in 5 years ever heard Severus Snape stop defending himself. Sir. Yes. Thank you for telling me the truth of it, not just the easy version. Snape inclined his head. You deserve the truth, Potter. You have deserved it for 15 years. I am behind on the payment by a substantial sum. I want to ask you more things. I have a lot more things, but I'm tired. And I think if I ask too many at once, then do not ask too many at once. We have time, or we will make time. Come to my office in the evenings when you are ready. Bring questions. I will answer them as best I can. We do not have to do this all today. All right. Harry stood up. He picked up the brass token. He looked at Snape. Sir. Yes. I'm not going to call you anything yet. Dumbledore said I didn't have to. I do not. Take your time. All right. He went to the door. He had his hand on the handle. He turned back. Sir. Yes, Potter. Hermione is bringing food again, isn't she? A long pause. She has, in fact, attempted to do so twice today. I have sent her away both times. She is persistent. I know. I'll tell her you ate, so she stops, so you don't have to keep. Thank you, Potter. You're welcome, sir. He went out. He stood in the corridor for a minute with the door at his back. He let himself breathe. Then he went up the stairs to find Tonks, and Tonks took him up to find Sirius. And the rest of Sunday passed in the small, ordinary way of Sundays. Lunch. A chess game. An argument about Sirius's flying motorcycle which Tonks declared confiscated for the duration. And at no point did Harry forget the brass token in his pocket. And at no point did he take it out to look at. And at the end of the day, when he climbed into the four-poster, he set the token on the bedside table next to the glass of water where he could see it from the pillow. He turned out the lamp. He thought before he slept, I have a father downstairs. He thought, I have a dad in the ground. He thought, I have both. And the dad is more important. But the father is going to be a thing too now. And I do not yet know what kind of thing. He slept. Down in her pink office under the whisper-skinned light of her gilt lamps, Dolar's Umbridge had not slept. She had drafted Decree 41. She had drafted Decree 42. She had crossed out Decree 43 twice and rewritten it in a darker ink. She had reached for the third sherry of the evening and had set it down without drinking it. She had stared at the ceiling for 35 seconds. Then she had, very carefully, taken out a small black notebook from her drawer and had begun to write in it, in her tidy round hand. The boy was excused from interview by Madame Pomfrey, who has been spoken to by Snape. Snape addressed me in a 4-paragraph letter that conceded nothing. The class was dismissed early on Friday following a potion accident. Granger was observed to leave the dungeons, return to the dungeons twice, and bring food and parchment to Snape's office on Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning. Auror Tonks, of disreputable family, took the boy off the grounds for 2 hours Sunday morning and returned him in good spirits. The dog Black has been seen on the grounds and is being permitted by the headmaster to reside there for unstated reasons. The boy did not look ill on Saturday morning at breakfast, where I observed him for a full 11 minutes. He had eaten a normal portion of porridge. She lifted the quill. She thought. She wrote, "The headmaster is hiding something. Snape is hiding something. The boy is hiding something, although he does not yet know that he is. They are all hiding the same thing. It is large. It will surface because that which is large does always surface in time. I shall wait. I shall in the meantime write to the minister. Cornelius will wish to know." She blotted the page. She closed the notebook. She locked the drawer. She poured herself another small sherry and drank it. Outside her pink window the moon was up over the forbidden forest, and 3 floors above, in a dungeon office, a potions master sat at his desk with a brass tokens twin. For he had requested one of his own from Gringotts by Floo that afternoon, and Master Griffook, who liked a man who wished to put the same proof in 2 different pockets, had obliged, and he held it on his palm and turned it once in his fingers, and he did not put it in his pocket. He put it in the drawer at the back of his desk where he kept the things that mattered. He shut the drawer. He went to bed. He slept against all his expectations, properly for the first time in 15 years. Chapter 3 end. Chapter 4. What James knew the letter came in the second post. Sirius was at the kitchen table at Grimmauld Place on the Wednesday morning after Tonks had taken his motorcycle, eating toast and sulking equally about both. He had been sent home to London under what was technically a polite request from Dumbledore but was in practice an order. Stay away from the school for a week, Dumbledore had said. Let the boy breathe. Let Severus breathe. Come back next Tuesday for the order meeting. I will need you here for it. Sirius had not argued, mostly because he had already done all the arguing he was going to be allowed in any reasonable lifetime, and Dumbledore had a face on him, that morning, of a man who had been thoroughly out-argued by his conscience, and had no interest in being out-argued a second time. So Sirius had come home. He had let the dog into the back garden. He had restocked the fire whiskey. He had cleaned 3 rooms more or less out of spite, because Creature had been muttering about the dust, and Sirius wanted to deny him the pleasure. He had, in a moment of weakness, written Harry a letter and then set the letter on fire because every line of it had read like an apology, which was not what Harry needed from him. He was buttering a second piece of toast when the post-owl rapped on the kitchen window. 2 letters. The first was Remus in his scratchy familiar hand, asking after him in 3 short, careful paragraphs that did not quite say, "I have heard, Sirius, are you all right?" Remus had heard. Of course Remus had heard. Dumbledore had told Remus on Sunday afternoon, not because Remus had a right to be told, But because Dumbledore had decided that of the surviving marauders, Remus would be the one most likely to behave well, and had wanted at least one ally in place when it became necessary to manage Sirius. Sirius did not particularly resent this. Remus had written him a steady, kind, sensible letter, and Sirius had sat with it for half an hour and then put it in the drawer with the tea towels because he did not know what to do with steady kindness this week. The second letter was thin. It was in an envelope that had been readdressed 3 times. The original address was in pencil and had been scribbled out and overwritten in green ink, which was Dumbledore's hand, and then overwritten again in plain black, which was Tonks's. The envelope had clearly traveled. Sirius held it up to the light, and his stomach went in a small, slow lurch sideways. The handwriting on the envelope, under the green and the black, in pencil that was barely legible after 15 years of being rubbed in a drawer, was Lily's. Sirius, if you ever read this, give it to him. There was no other text. Inside the envelope was a second envelope which was not addressed. Sirius held the inner envelope for a long time. He set down his toast. He pushed his plate away. He walked from the table to the window and back again to the table twice, the way a dog walked when it was deciding whether to go outside or sit down. He sat down. He stood up. He sat down again. He drew his wand and used it to slit the inner envelope along the top very neatly because he did not trust his fingers. A folded sheet of parchment came out. He unfolded it. The handwriting inside was also Lily's, but tighter, more controlled. The handwriting of a woman who has thought about every word twice. The ink was old but not faded. She had used the good Diagon Alley ink, the ink that lasted. The letter was dated 3 October 1981 in the top right corner. That was 3 weeks before she died. Sirius read it. He read it sitting at the table with the second piece of toast cooling forgotten on his plate. He read it slowly, the way a man reads a letter he is afraid will say something he cannot unread, which is exactly what it said. He read it through once. He set it down. He stood up. He paced the kitchen twice. He sat back down. He read it again. Sirius, this is the letter I should have written you in 1979. I am writing it now in October of 1981, in our hiding place. And I am writing it because James and I had a conversation last night, and James said, Sirius is going to be furious if it ever comes out, Lily, and I will not be there to take the rage. And I have been thinking about this all morning, and I have decided he is right, and the only way to keep your rage from breaking on Severus's head, because that is who it will break on, my dear, you know it is to write you a letter in my own hand which Albus will keep until you need it. Harry is not James's biological son. Harry is Severus Snape's biological son, and James has known since I knew, and James has chosen to be Harry's father in every way that matters, and James loves Harry as if he had made him from his own bones, which in every meaningful sense he has. I am not going to tell you the details of how it happened. They are not your business. I am going to tell you that I do not regret the marriage with James and I do not regret the night with Severus, and these two things sit uneasily together in me, but they sit, and I have made my peace with them sitting, and I would ask you, if you ever read this, to make your peace with them sitting too. I am asking you a thing, Sirius. I am asking it because James cannot ask it anymore if you are reading this letter, and I am asking it instead. Look after Harry. Of course, look after Harry. You will. I know you will. I am asking you also when the time comes, and it will come because Severus is a brave man who keeps secrets badly. I am asking you to be kind to Severus, not friendly. I would not insult either of you by asking that. Kind. Civil. The way one is to a difficult relative at a funeral. Severus has loved me since we were children. He has loved me badly, the way one loves someone one cannot have, and he has done many terrible things because of it, and he will do many more, because love does not improve people serious. It only intensifies them. Severus will love Harry when he learns the truth. He will love him terribly. He will not be a good father in the way James would have been a good father, but he will, in his way, give Harry something James could not give him. A father who has been a child Harry's age in a house like Harry's and who has come out the other side. James and I did not have to come out of any other side. We were lucky. Severus is not lucky. Harry, we are realizing, is also not lucky. They will need each other. If you are reading this, you have not yet thrown it in the fire. I am very grateful. Be kind to him, Sirius. Not for him, for Harry. Because Harry has Severus's stubbornness and James's temper and my taste in trouble, and he is going to need every adult in his life pulling in roughly the same direction, even the ones who hate each other on principle. I love you. I have always loved you. You have been the best brother to my husband, and you will be the best godfather to my son. And I am only sorry I will not be there to see the long parade of small disasters you and Harry will manage to create together. Lily Sirius set the letter down on the table. He sat for a long time with his hands on either side of the letter, palms flat to the wood, not moving. The kitchen clock ticked. Somewhere upstairs, Creature was muttering to a moth. The toast was definitely cold now. He had not cried properly since the night Dumbledore had come to the safe house in November of 1981 to tell him that James and Lily were dead. He had not cried in Azkaban, because in Azkaban tears were food for the Dementors, and you learned, very quickly, not to. He had not cried since he had got out. He had screamed, certainly. He had wept dryly in the way men wept when their tear ducts had forgotten how. He had not cried. He cried now. He cried for about 2 minutes very quietly into the heels of his hands, and then he sat up and he wiped his face on his sleeve and he picked up the letter and he folded it carefully back into its envelope, and he stood up from the table and he went to the fireplace and he tossed in a handful of flue powder and he said very steadily, "Hogwarts Potions Master's office." The fire turned green. He stuck his head in. Snape's morning had not until that moment been a bad morning. He had taught his first years, who had, against all his pedagogical theory, produced a perfectly serviceable cure for boils. He had eaten a piece of toast. He had drunk 1 cup of coffee that was hot. He had been writing in his neat hand the second of the answers he had promised Harry he would have ready for that evening's meeting. There had been one on Monday evening, brief and careful, and another on Tuesday evening, longer, in which Harry had asked 4 questions and Snape had answered 3 of them, and they had agreed to leave the 4th for the next meeting. And he was just contemplating whether it was acceptable to use the word humiliated in his own self-description when his fireplace coughed, flared, and produced the head of Sirius Black. Snape stood up. "Black, Snape, are you on fire?" "My head's in your fire, Snape. That is the form of communication. That is how flues." "I am perfectly aware. I was taunting. What do you want?" "I have a letter." "From whom?" Sirius's head, on its small ground of green flames, looked away for a moment. It looked back. "From Lily." Snape sat down. He did it without quite meaning to. The chair caught him, as chairs sometimes did. He set both hands on the desk. He did not say anything because there were no words available to him in any of the 7 languages he could read. "Snape." "Yes." "Not to you, to me." Written in October 81. About Harry. About you. I think you should read it. I think you should read it before I show it to Harry. I want you to know what's in it before he knows what's in it. Come through. Come through. Sirius came through. He stepped out of the fireplace neatly enough, brushed soot off his shoulder, and set the envelope on Snape's desk with the careful flat motion of a man placing a glass of water at someone's elbow. He stepped back. "I'll wait outside." "You will wait here." "Snape, you don't want me in the room while you read." "I do not, in fact, want you in the room while I read this. I want you in the room anyway. Sit down." Sirius sat down in the visitor's chair. Snape picked up the envelope. He took out the letter, he read it. He read it once. He set it down. He looked for a full 30 seconds at the corner of his desk. He picked the letter up again. He read it a second time more slowly. He set it down. He did not cry. He did not move very much. He simply went very still, the way he had gone very still in the dungeon classroom on the previous Friday afternoon, and he breathed in and out through his nose 4 or 5 times, and the fingers of his right hand pressed down lightly on the parchment as if to keep it from blowing away, although there was no wind in the room. Sirius watched him, and Sirius understood, with a small reluctant twinge that he did not acknowledge to himself, that Severus Snape was a man who had been crying about Lily Evans in private for 16 years and had not stopped, and was not going to, and was at this moment doing something which in any other man would have been a flood, and in him was just the quiet, tight, painful pressure of a finger on a sheet of paper. Black. Yeah. You showed this to me before showing it to him. Yeah. Why? Because she said to be kind to you. And it would not have been kind to make him watch you find out in front of him that she said to be kind to you. He'd have felt sorry for you, and then he'd have felt guilty for feeling sorry for you. I'm trying to be a to do what she, Sirius stopped. He cleared his throat. He looked at his own knees. Right, he said. Well, there it is. There it is. You can keep it if you want. I do not want. Take it for an hour, make a copy, whatever, then I'll show him. Make a copy, yes, thank you, Sirius nodded. He did not get up. There was a silence. Snape. Yes, I don't like you. I am aware. I am not going to start liking you. I am, however, going to do this thing she asked me to do. I am going to be, what was her word? Civil. Civil, yeah, civil. I am going to be civil with you. About Harry, in matters concerning Harry, I am not going to be civil about anything else. I will continue to insult you in private and at order meetings and in my own head when I am bored. Acceptable. Right, good, I'm glad we have an understanding. I am surprisingly glad as well. Don't get used to it. I shall not. A silence. Sirius cleared his throat again. Snape. Yes. He is doing all right, you know, the kid. Better than I would have. Better than most kids. He's tougher than he looks. He is. He gets that from her. He gets it from both of them. Sirius almost smiled. He didn't quite. He stood up. I'll take the letter back this afternoon, after I've shown him. Take it now. I have copied what I need. You haven't copied anything. I have, with my eyes. Snape, you cannot. I have an eidetic memory for handwritten material when motivated. Take the letter, Black. I have it. He should have the original. Sirius took the letter. He held it for a second. He looked at Snape. What did she ever see in you? That is a question I have been asking for 30 years, Black, and to which I have, in those 30 years, found exactly one answer that I find tolerable. What's the answer? That she did not see anything in me. She looked at me and saw the boy she had grown up next door to, and she had an old habit of caring for that boy. And she could not break the old habit even after she had grown out of any reason for it. It was not love. It was kindness, which is a more difficult thing, and which I have spent a very long time trying to learn the difference between. Sirius looked at him for a moment. Then he said, quite quietly, That's a more honest answer than I expected of you, Snape. I am attempting to be honest. It is unpleasant. It looks unpleasant, suits you, though. Oh, go away, Black. Sirius went. He stepped into the fire. He flung in the powder. He looked back briefly over his shoulder and said, I will tell him at lunchtime. I'll come up to the school. I will flew into McGonagall's office. He'll be in the kitchens. I will bring him to her office and read him the letter. You will not be there. You will be in your dungeon. You will at 6 o'clock this evening when he comes down for whatever it is the two of you do in the evenings now, not mention the letter unless he mentions it first. Do you agree? I agree. Good. Black. Yes. Thank you. Sirius did not answer. He went. The fire turned red again. The kitchen, briefly visible at Grimmauld Place through the flames, vanished. Snape sat at his desk. He sat for a long time. Then, with the same absurd dignity he had brought to all the other small, extraordinary moments of the past week, He stood up, walked across the office to the cabinet, took down a bottle of the fire whiskey he kept for emergencies, poured one finger into a glass, drank it, set the glass down, and went back to the desk to keep writing the answer to Harry's third question, which, as it happened, had been, "Did you ever talk to my mum after the war started?" And which had been the easiest of the three to answer because the answer was number. He had been writing about it for an hour. He returned to the sentence he had broken off in the middle. He finished the sentence. He started a new one. Outside, the morning carried on being a morning. At 12:30, McGonagall's office. Sirius had flew in just before the lunch bell. He had asked McGonagall for the room. McGonagall, who had been told nothing of the situation but who had a 30-year diagnostic instinct for marauder weather, had taken one look at Sirius's face and said, "Take it. I'll be in the staff room. Don't break anything," and had gone. Harry came up at 12:40 with a sandwich in his hand and a confused expression. "Sirius, I thought you weren't allowed back this week." "I am breaking the rule. Come in. Sit down. Eat your sandwich. I have a thing to give you." He gave Harry the letter. Harry read it. He read it sitting on the corner of McGonagall's desk, with his sandwich on a plate beside him untouched, and his hands shook a little less than they had on the Saturday, but they shook. He read it twice. The second time he read it more slowly. He set it down. He looked up. "Dad," he said. "Yeah, kid. Dad knew. Dad knew. Dad and Mum talked about you. Sirius is going to be furious if it ever comes out, and I will not be there to take the rage." He knew he was going to die. They both knew. They knew it was likely, yeah. "And Dad set this up. Dad told Mum to write you the letter. Dad set up the whole. He was managing this. From beyond. He left this for you so that when it came out you wouldn't. He thought of me," Sirius said quietly. "Yeah, he always thought of me. He thought of all of us. He was, Harry. Your dad was the kind of man who left letters for after he was dead. He was that kind of person. He sat down at his kitchen table and he thought, who is going to need help when I'm not here, and what kind of help, and how can I leave it for them? He did it for Remus. He did it for me. He probably did it for you too, somewhere. Although Dumbledore would be the one with that letter, and Dumbledore is not going to give it to you yet because Dumbledore has opinions about timing." Mum said. "Yeah." Harry looked at the letter. He read the line about Severus again. He read it a third time. "She said be kind to him. She said be kind to him. And I'm trying. I will tell you, Harry, I am trying very hard. I am not going to start liking him. I am not going to stop wanting to set him on fire about 3 times a week." But she asked. "And she's not wrong. She's not wrong about what you'll need. So yeah, I'm trying." Harry stood up. He folded the letter. He held it for a moment. He looked at Sirius. "Sirius. Yeah, I'm going to ask Snape to read this tonight when I see him. He's read it." "What?" "I showed it to him this morning before I showed it to you." Harry stared at him. "Why?" "Because she wrote it about him. And because, Harry, I am old enough now and battered enough to know that you do not show a man's epitaph to the man's son before you have shown it to the man. He should know what's in it. He should know what your mother said about him. He should not have to find out in the same room as you. It would have humiliated him. He doesn't need humiliating. He's done enough of that to himself." Harry was quiet a moment. Then he said, "Sirius. Did you just look out for Snape's feelings? Don't. You did. Don't, kid. You looked out for Harry James Potter. I am going to set fire to your owl. Hedwig hasn't done anything. Hedwig is a hostage. Hedwig is collateral. Stop laughing." Harry was laughing helplessly with the kind of laughter that came out the other side of crying. He went to Sirius. He put his arms round him. Sirius's arms came round him hard. "Thanks," Harry said into his shoulder. "Any time, kid, any time. Now eat your sandwich. McGonagall will be back any minute and she will not approve of crumbs in her office." They spent the rest of lunch together on the lawn, which had warmed up enough for it. Sirius could not stay long. The order was the order. He left at 2 o'clock by McGonagall's flu, with strict instructions to Harry to write to him every night until further notice. Harry went to afternoon classes. He sat in charms next to Hermione, who watched him sideways with a small, careful concern that he could not entirely meet. He sat in transfiguration. He did his homework. He ate dinner. He did not look up at the staff table during dinner because he was trying to maintain a discipline about it. At 5 minutes to 6, he went down to the dungeons. He had brought Lily's letter with him. He had also brought, in the inside pocket of his robes, the small brass token from Gringotts, because he had got into the habit of carrying it. He did not entirely know why he carried it. He carried it. He knocked. The brisk three-tap pattern of Hermione, which he had discovered Snape responded to faster than the more diffident knocks of other students. Hermione had taught it to him on Monday afternoon with the air of a person bequeathing a useful charm. Enter. He went in. Snape was at his desk, with a small set of notes in front of him in his neat, dense hand, and a cup of tea, actual tea, this time not coffee, at his elbow. He looked up. He looked tired in a different way than he had on the weekend. The exhausted shock of the early days had begun to rearrange itself into the more permanent, low-grade exhaustion of a man getting through the days. "Potter, sir." Harry sat down. He pulled the letter out of his pocket and laid it on the desk between them. I know you've read it, Sirius told me. I have. I just wanted you to see it again, with me here, so we're both looking at it." Snape looked at the letter. He looked at Harry. That is a generous thing to do, Potter." "I don't know if it's generous. I just wanted to, because she wrote to you in it. And I wanted to be in the room when you held it knowing I knew." Snape reached out. He laid one finger carefully on the corner of the parchment. He did not pick it up. "There is a line," he said slowly, "that I have read 4 times now. Severus has loved me since we were children." "Yes, sir." It is a very strange thing, Potter, to read the words a dead person has written about the most private fact of one's life. I have spent 15 years assuming she had taken my feelings as a private grievance and never mentioned them to your father. I find she did. I find that they spoke about it. I find that they discussed me, with kindness. Yes, sir. It is." He stopped. "I would not have asked her to. I would have preferred she had not. It is the sort of generosity I have, throughout my life, not known how to receive." "That's all right, sir. You don't have to know how to receive it. You just have to have it. It's already been done. You can't give it back, so it's just yours. You can do whatever you want with it." Snape looked at him for a long moment. "Where," he said carefully, "did you learn to talk like that, Potter?" "I don't know." "From Hermione, probably. Or from my dad. I don't remember him, but Sirius says he says my dad used to talk like that, about the importance of just having things sometimes instead of trying to fix them. I don't know if it's true. It sounds like something I'd like him to have said." "It is the kind of thing he would have said," Snape said. "Yes, your father was, in his good moments, a man who saw things very clearly. You inherited it from him in a sense that is more than biological. I am glad of it." "Thanks, sir." "You are welcome, Potter." A small silence. "Sir." "Yes." I had a 4th question from Tuesday. I remember. It was about Voldemort." Snape's face did not move, but the line of his shoulders very slightly settled. "Yes. I just want to know. Does he know about me? About the parchment?" "He does not, as far as I am aware." "He'd kill you if he knew." "He would kill me if he knew." "Yes. He would, in fact, kill me with great inventiveness because he would consider it a personal betrayal of the most spectacular kind. He would also, and this is the part that matters to you, Potter, so listen, he would attempt to take you. Not kill you, take you. He would try to use you. He would try to use what I might give him, in exchange for your life. And he would have me on a string he had not previously had me on. It is in everyone's interest that he does not know. It is not impossible that he will find out. There are people in his service who are clever, and there are people in our service who are loose-mouthed, and we are at the mercy of both. I have made my preparations against the possibility. What preparations? I will not tell you. Why? Because if he gets into your head, Potter, and finds them, the preparations are useless. Trust me to have made them. Ask me questions about other matters. Will you tell me one thing about them? Snape was silent a moment. One thing. Are you doing them for me? For you and for your mother, mostly for you, yes. All right, Harry said. He sat back in the chair. He felt oddly lighter. Sir. Yes. Can I ask one more thing? Yes. Your mother, Hermione, thinks I have her mouth. The corner of Snape's mouth, the man's actual mouth, the difficult thin mouth of Severus Snape, the mouth that had said insufferable little know-it-all not 3 weeks ago, moved very faintly in something that in another face would have been a smile. My mother was Eileen Prince. She was the captain of the Hogwarts Gobstones team in 1942. She was a thin woman with dark hair and a pinched mouth and a fierce intelligence that no one in my father's house ever encouraged. She would have liked you. She would have liked Granger more, but she would have liked you. I have a photograph. I will bring it to our next meeting. Friday. Thanks, sir. You are welcome, Potter. The order meeting was Tuesday night. It happened in the kitchen at Grimmauld Place, the long table full and the flue busy with the comings and goings of people who had spent 6 weeks not quite getting along and were now, in a sudden spike of urgency, getting along even less. Mad-Eye was in the corner with his good eye fixed on Mundungus, who was attempting to slide a silver goblet into his coat. Molly was at the head of the table organizing soup. Bill was up from Gringotts, still in his fanged earring and his long coat. Tonks was at the foot of the table eating a sandwich, hair currently a violent purple. Remus sat next to Sirius, drinking tea, talking in the low, careful voice he had been talking in all week. Snape arrived at 12 minutes past 9. He had cut it fine, but he had cut it fine on purpose. There was a meeting at the manor at 7:30 that he could not have missed without endangering his cover, and he had apparated direct from the Wiltshire Road to the Grimmauld step in a single jump that had cost him a small piece of his left ear in splinching. He had heeled it on the doorstep and come in. The room half-stilled when he came in. It always did. He nodded to Dumbledore at the head of the table. He sat down in the chair Sirius had pushed out for him. Sirius did not look at him. The chair was pushed out anyway. Snape sat in it. Dumbledore began. The meeting was, at first, the usual thing, reports from Mad-Eye. A new placement for Bill at Gringotts that would let him keep an eye on certain vault movements. A short, angry summary from Tonks about how the Aurors had been ordered to detain 3 Order members on patently fabricated charges, and how that order had been quietly disobeyed by everyone who knew them. Dumbledore listened and made notes, and asked occasional sharp questions. Snape, when his turn came, gave his report. He did not go into detail. He did not have to, he said. He is moving on the prophecy. A small silence in the kitchen. When, said Dumbledore, soon, within the month, possibly within the fortnight. He has identified an entry route through the ministry that he believes the department's wards will not register. He has also, Snape paused only for a second, ordered me to prepare a particular potion for him. The preparation requires 3 ingredients I do not currently have. One of them is hippogriff feather, which is, as you may be aware, not legally harvestable. And what is this potion for? Said Mad-Eye. It is a binding potion, of a type that, used on a young wizard, would render him compliant for a period of approximately 72 hours. The temperature of the room dropped about 10 degrees. Sirius said, very quietly, used on Harry. Used on Harry. Yes. It is intended that, should he succeed in extracting Harry from the school, Harry should be manageable, for a window of 3 days in which a number of things could be done with him. Oh, said Hermione very softly from the staircase where she was, illegally in violation of all instructions, sitting and listening. Oh, Dumbledore did not turn to scold her. He looked at Snape. "You will not, of course, brew the potion. I will brew the potion. I will brew it slowly. I will brew it incorrectly. I will brew it in a way that is detectable to him only by an analytical test he is unlikely to perform, but that will, in the event of use, render the binding effect approximately nil. He will not have it for at least 3 weeks. I will deliver it to him in a vial that I will provide. The vial will have, on its base, a small mark that I will know and he will not. This is, to my knowledge, the best I can do without disclosing what I have learned." Mad-Eye grunted. "That'll do. That will do," said Dumbledore. "Severus, you have understood, of course, what this means." "I have. He wants the boy alive. He wants the boy alive, yes. Long enough to use. And he wants the prophecy first so he knows what to use the boy for. Yes. And he is moving sooner than I had expected. Yes." "How far," said Dumbledore very quietly, "would you estimate that we are from the moment at which you can no longer maintain your position?" Snape was silent a moment. "If he succeeds in retrieving the prophecy, Albus, and the prophecy contains what we believe it contains, then the next question he will ask is how many of my servants have known about this child for 15 years and not told me. He will look first at Lucius, who is loyal. He will then look at Bellatrix, who is mad. He will then look at me. He will look at me with great care. He will use legitimacy. I will hold. I will hold perhaps for 1 interview, perhaps 2. Beyond that I cannot promise." "No," said Dumbledore, "of course you cannot. It is not just the prophecy now," Snape said. There is a complicating factor, an additional complication." He did not look at anyone. He looked at the table. "Yesterday, Black brought me a letter that Lily wrote in October of 1981, about the boy. About my role. About what would need to be done if I ever learned the truth. That letter exists only in the original. I have not made a copy. The boy has the original. It is in his trunk at the school, where he believes it is safe. I have a strong concern, Headmaster, that I am no longer able to trust my own emotional response to events involving him. I would like the school to know, Minerva in particular to know, that under no circumstances is the boy to leave the grounds without my express awareness, and that should I be killed or unmasked, the letter is to be retrieved from his trunk by Minerva personally and lodged at the bank, where it will be safer than anywhere in the school." "Severus," said Dumbledore very gently, "have you told the boy any of this?" "I have told him that I am making preparations. I have not told him what they are. He asked me on Wednesday yesterday whether the preparations were for him. I told him they were. And he was satisfied. He was satisfied. He is more easily satisfied by simple statements of intent than I would have predicted of him. He is, in this respect, more like his mother than his father." Sirius looked up sharply. "He is also like his father, Snape." "He is, in other respects. I was not contradicting you, Black." Sirius nodded. He did not look mollified. He let it pass. Dumbledore drew his hands together on the table. "Very well," he said. "We move accordingly. Alastor, I want a continuous watch on the corridor outside the prophecy hall, discreet, off ministry. Nymphadora, you are to remain at the school for the next 10 days. Minerva will arrange a cover. Bill, I want every account in the names of Severus Snape and Harry Potter. And yes, Severus, I am aware of how that sounds, flagged for unusual activity. Severus, you will continue to brew slowly. Sirius, yes, Albus. You are to remain here. I know, my dear boy, I know. I'm asking it of you anyway. I'll stay. Thank you, on one condition. Yes, you let me write to him. Every day you let him write back. Every day. No interception, no oversight. If he is going to be the bait in your trap, Albus, he is going to know there is at least one of us awake at the other end of the line every night." Dumbledore looked at him for a long moment. He inclined his head. "Granted." The meeting wound on. There were assignments. There were arguments. There was, eventually, soup. Snape did not stay for the soup. He stood up at 10:15. He nodded to Dumbledore. He nodded, and this was new. This was so new it caused two people in the room to stare to Sirius. He went to the fireplace. Sirius caught up to him at the edge of the hearth. Snape. Black. You said you were no longer able to trust your own emotional response. I said it, yes. That's the most honest thing I've ever heard you say. It is also an accurate one, take it as such. Snape. What? Don't die, Snape looked at him. I will do my best, Black. That is not a don't die, Snape. Not now, not this week, not next month. Whatever you are doing, do it without dying, because if you die now, Harry will be a mess, Snape. He will be the most appalling kind of mess. The kind he was before he had a chance to know you and stop, and I am not equipped to deal with that. I have run out of equipment. Snape held his gaze a moment. I will do my best, he said again, more quietly. I will do my very best, Black. I am also no longer prepared to die just yet, for the same reason. He stepped into the fire. The flames went green. He went. Sirius stood by the empty hearth a long time, with the soup on the table behind him going cold, and he thought about how very, very strange the world had become in 2 weeks. He thought, I had a brother for 12 years, and I have a half-truce with my brother's worst enemy for 1 week. And the half-truce is, against all my expectations, the more interesting relationship. He thought, Lily, you knew. You absolutely knew. You wrote that letter knowing exactly what you were doing. Upstairs, on the staircase, Hermione had gone back to bed. She was, in fact, still at school. She had used a flue at McGonagall's office on a clandestine errand of her own, with permission, and had been on the staircase and was now back at the school. Tonks had escorted her up. In the dungeon, Severus Snape stepped out of the fire into his own office. He did not sit down. He went straight to his cupboard. He took out the pensive. He set it on the desk. He took the small wooden box from his pocket, the box Dumbledore had given him on Saturday morning, with 2 more vials in it. The first vial was Lily's confession to Dumbledore. The second was the night in the Hog's Head. He did not look at the second. He looked at the first. He poured it into the basin. He bent his head. He fell. He landed in a small office in 1980, and he watched a woman of 20 he had loved his entire life stand in front of Albus Dumbledore and say, in a voice that was tight and frightened but very clear, Albus, I am pregnant, and the child is Severus's, and I do not know what to do. He stood and listened, and he watched Dumbledore's face go grave, and he watched his own name pass over the lips of a woman who in 3 weeks would be murdered. And he listened to her fear, and he listened to her plan, and he listened to her ask the headmaster for help, and he listened to the headmaster give it. He stood in the small office in 1980, and he understood, with a finality he had not understood it with before, that he was not the wronged party in this. He was the cause. He was the inconvenience around which Lily Potter had had to redesign her entire short life. She had loved James. She had married James. She had built a family around James, and she had been forced, by one stupid drunken night in a Hogsmeade inn, to redesign the family she had built, to bring in adoption paperwork and a deception and an order safe house, and a long, careful plan to keep one boy safe from one wizard who would have used the boy to torment one potion's master. He had been the cost. The boy had been her solution. He stepped back out of the pensive. He sat down. He pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes. He thought with the weariness of a man who had spent 15 years carrying a small private grievance, I do not get to be angry anymore. I have not got the right, he thought, but I do perhaps get to be useful. He stood up. He put the vial back. He put the pensive back. He went to bed. He slept badly. He dreamed of his mother. In a small back room in a country house in Wiltshire, a tall, pale man with red eyes was standing in front of a fireplace, and a smaller, tidier man with white blonde hair was kneeling on the rug at his feet, and the smaller man was saying, in a careful voice, My lord, the potter's boy has been seen in the company of Auror Tonks, in Diagon Alley, on Sunday past. Tonks. Yes, my lord. The half-blood's daughter, Andromeda's child. Yes, my lord. And the boy. Visited Gringotts, my lord. By the side counter, by the inheritance counter, a long silence. Lucius. My lord, find out what test was performed. My lord, the goblins do not need to tell us. Find out what was requested. The fact of the request is what matters. We may infer the rest. Do you understand, Lucius? Yes, my lord. Good, go. Lucius Malfoy got up off the rug, he bowed, he left the room. He shut the door. He stood in the corridor outside the door for a moment. He thought Severus. He thought Severus. He thought Severus has been spending an unusual amount of time in his office these past 2 weeks. Severus has been brewing a cure for boils for first years and has been seen to compliment a Hufflepuff on her stirring technique. Severus has, according to my son, dismissed an entire potions class 20 minutes early on a Friday and refused to explain himself. Severus, he thought very quickly of the inheritance counter at Gringotts. He thought very quickly of 15-year-old boys with green eyes. He thought very quickly of Lily Evans, who he had met exactly twice in his life, the second time at a Slytherin party in his own 7th year, and at whom Severus had looked across the room with a face that Lucius Malfoy had recognized, because Lucius Malfoy had once looked at Narcissa with the same face. He thought, oh. He thought, oh. He thought, I am going to keep this to myself. For now. For very precisely as long as it is useful to me. He went down the corridor with his cane in his hand and the soft, small smile of a man who had just had an extremely useful idea. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5. Half-blood, whole sun. It was a Thursday. It was always Thursdays, Harry would think later, when he had become a man who sometimes had time to think about the shape of things. The big things in his life always seemed to fall on a Thursday, the way other people's birthdays fell in a particular month. Friday was when the small things broke, Thursday was when the big ones did. He had cut his thumb on a pestle on a Friday. He learned the truth of his own life on a Saturday. He met his godfather on the lawn on a Sunday. But on the Thursday of the second week of November, in a year that was already odd and was about to get odder, the world moved. It moved at 2:20 in the afternoon, in the middle of a defense against the dark arts lesson conducted by Dolar's Umbridge. Harry was in the back row next to Ron, with his copy of Wilbert Slinkard's Defensive Magical Theory open to Chapter 8, on which Umbridge had set them the exercise of summarizing paragraphs 4 through 11 into a single coherent statement of governmental policy. Hermione had finished hers in 11 minutes. Ron had finished his in 16, mostly by copying Hermione's. Harry was 23 minutes in and had got as far as the word because. His scar burned. It was not the slow, grinding burn it had been all term, the dull ache that came and went and meant only that the person at the other end of it was awake and somewhere on the planet. This was different. This was sharp. This was the sharpness of someone who, somewhere, had just laughed. Voldemort did not laugh often. The laugh, when it came, was the worst sound in the world. Harry had heard it twice in his life, and both times it had preceded something. He pressed his palm against his forehead and shut his eyes. A picture came. It came the way the pictures always came, complete, sudden, undeniable. A long corridor, black tiles, doors, a door, the door at the end of the long corridor where the Department of Mysteries kept its quiet treasures. The door was open. Beyond the door, spread on a polished black floor, a man. The man was serious. The man was serious, and the man was on his knees, and the man was bleeding from the mouth, and the man was looking up at someone and laughing in the way Sirius laughed when he was being told he was about to die and had decided to make the dying bored and unimpressed, and the someone above him had a wand pointed down at him, and the someone above him was, Harry opened his eyes. He had stood up. He did not remember standing up. The classroom was looking at him. Hermione had her quill in midair. Ron was half out of his chair. Umbridge was at her desk with her hand raised, frozen mid-gesture. Mr. Potter. Mr. Potter, why are you on your feet? Harry could not get the words out. He was holding the desk. His hand was white on the wood. His scar was screaming. He could feel the laughter at the other end of it like a small, cold finger drawn down his spine, and the someone above Sirius was leaning down, and the someone was speaking, and Harry could not hear the words, but he could hear the shape of the words, and the shape was Crucio. He's got Sirius. The words came out flat. They came out as if Harry were a man making an announcement at a station, a clear, flat fact. The class stared. Hermione very quickly said, Harry, I think you've gone funny again. Sit down, please. He's got Sirius. He has Sirius. He has Sirius in the corridor at the department, and he's— Mr. Potter, Umbridge said in a voice like a polite knife. Mr. Potter, please be seated. Mr. Potter, please be seated immediately. I will not tolerate this kind of— I have to go, Harry said. He moved. He did not run. He simply walked very fast between the desks toward the door because his body had decided to do this without consulting his head, and there was nothing left of his head to consult. Umbridge stood up. Umbridge said something sharp that Harry did not catch. Ron and Hermione were on their feet behind him. He is having a fit, Umbridge was saying loudly. He is attention-seeking. This has been a pattern. Do not encourage. Hermione caught up with Harry at the door. She gripped his elbow. Harry, listen to me. Listen, look at me. He looked at her. It might not be true. It is true. Voldemort can put pictures into your head. We have talked about this. He can. It's true, Hermione. It might be a trap. He wants you to go. That's the hole, Harry, that's the hole. He's been trying to lure you for months, and we've been talking about this for months, and it is very probably I know it's a trap. I am going anyway. Harry, I am going, Hermione. If it is a trap and Sirius is at home, I will be wrong and I will look stupid, and I will live with that. If it is true and Sirius is there and I do not go, Sirius will die, and I will not live with that. That is the calculation. Hermione's face did an extraordinary thing. It did several things at once. It was angry. It was frightened. It was, Harry would think about this later, very, very proud. Right, she said. Right, then we do it properly. We do not go off half-cocked. We do not go alone. Ron, run now, find Snape. Tell him exactly what Harry just said. Tell him exactly. Use his words. Then come back to us. We will be in the entrance hall. Run. Ron went. Ron, who had spent 5 years not being the first person consulted in a crisis, ran the way a man runs when someone he loves has just trusted him with the only sensible task in a room full of disasters. He shoved past Umbridge in the doorway. Umbridge said, Mr. Weasley, you will. Ron said, no, Professor, I won't, and was gone. Harry stood in the door of the classroom. He looked at Hermione. He looked at Umbridge. Professor, he said politely, I am leaving the school for the afternoon. You are not. I am. I'll take any detention you want when I get back, if I get back, but I am leaving. He went. He went, in fact, faster than he had thought he could. Hermione was beside him. They went down the corridor and down 2 flights and across the hall and out the front doors, which is exactly what one is not supposed to do during a class, and they crossed the lawn at a flat run, and Harry's scar was still screaming, and somewhere beyond the gates was a place where they could apparate, although Harry could not apparate. But Hermione had a side-along with Tonks that did not count as apparating because it was an emergency. Tag charm Tonks had made her practice, and Snape met them at the front gates. He had run from the dungeon. He was out of breath. His robes were askew. He did not have a coat. His wand was in his hand. Behind him at a short distance came Tonks with her own wand drawn and a face like a blade. Potter. Sirius. They have Sirius. I saw him. The Department of Mysteries. He's been. Show me. Sir, show me. Now stand still. Look at me. Look at me, Potter. Harry looked at him. He looked into the black eyes, and he felt the small, cold pull at the edge of his mind that he had felt once before when Snape had taught him the occlumency lesson that had gone so badly. He did not resist this time. He let Snape in. He let Snape look. He fed the picture forward, the corridor, the door, the laugh, the wand pointed down. He let Snape see all of it. It took 5 seconds. Snape stepped back. He had gone very pale. It is real, sir. It is real. He is there. I would have known if it were a planted vision, Potter. I have spent a great deal of time looking at planted visions, and there is a difference of texture, and this is not one. He has black. Black has been taken in the last 20 minutes. Tonks, sir. Get on the broomstick I will lend you. Fly, go to the burrow, send the order. Mad-Eye, Lupin, Kingsley, Molly, tell them mysteries, tell them now. Do not flew, the flues are tapped, fly. Sir, she turned. She ran for the brooms. Snape turned to Harry. You are going to do exactly what I tell you, do you understand? Yes, sir. You are going to grip my arm. You are going to close your eyes. We are going to apparate. It will be unpleasant. We will appear in the visitor's atrium. From there we go down. You will stay behind me at all times. You will not break formation. You will not be a hero. If at any point I tell you to leave, you will leave. If at any point I am incapacitated, you will leave. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Granger, sir. You will go back to the school. You will go to the headmaster. Tell him everything. Then you will go to your common room and you will stay there. Do you understand? No, sir. Snape blinked. I beg your pardon. With respect, sir, I am coming with you. I have been to the department before. I know the layout of the corridor. I know exactly where the door is. I have read the Auror's published guidance on department raids. You have not. I will be useful. Granger, sir, I will be useful. He looked at her. He looked at Harry. He took a sharp breath. Both of you, grip, grip. They gripped. Close your eyes. They closed. The world was squeezed through a very small dark tube. Harry felt his lungs reverse direction. Then there was air again and stone under his feet, and the cool, unmistakable echoing space of the Ministry of Magic atrium at 4 in the afternoon, and the gold statues, and the polished black floor and the lift. There were no people. The atrium was empty. The welcome witch's desk was abandoned. There was a half-drunk cup of tea on it and a folded copy of the Prophet. The fountain was off. He has cleared the ministry, Snape said. Or had it cleared, he has someone here, someone with authority to clear the floor. We are walking into a building they have arranged for us. Lucius, Hermione said immediately. Lucius Malfoy is on 3 boards. He has the friends to Lucius. Yes, stay close. Wands ready. They went to the lift. The corridor at the bottom of the lifts was the corridor in Harry's vision. The black tiles, the torches, the single door at the end. The door was open. Snape held them back at the corner. He went forward alone very softly and looked round the doorframe. He came back. Black is on the floor, conscious, bleeding from the mouth. There are 6 Death Eaters in the room. The masks are on. I recognize the postures of 3 of them. Bellatrix Lestrange, Rodolphus Lestrange, Macnair. The Dark Lord is not present. Lucius Malfoy is not present. Granger, what is the room behind that one? It's the Prophecy Hall, sir. It's where the shelves are. Sirius is in the antechamber, the small room. Beyond him is the big one. The prophecy is on shelf 97. Has Black drawn his wand? His wand is on the floor, sir, about 4 feet from his hand. He could go for it. He is waiting for us. Yes, sir. He is bait. We are the catch. We are not going to oblige them, Potter. Listen to me. We are going to oblige them in appearance. We are going to do something that looks like what they expect us to do and is not. Granger. Do you have the 2 decoy detonators? Yes, sir. The Weasley twins gave me a set. Use them. Both. I am going to walk into the antechamber from the main door. They will see me. They will not curse me at first because I am one of them. They will be confused. In the 4 seconds of confusion, you will throw the detonators down the corridor behind us. They will detonate. The Death Eaters will believe they are being flanked. 3 will turn. I will take the 3 with their backs to me. You will bring Potter into the antechamber under his cloak. He will go for Black. Black will be apparated out by Black's own portkey, which I know he carries on his wrist because Tonks made him carry it. You will then leave the way we came, disillusioned. I will hold the chamber for 60 seconds and follow. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Potter. Yes, sir. You are not to engage. Black is to be your only objective. Get him to the door. Activate the portkey, send him out, then come out. Yes, sir. This will not work perfectly. It will not be elegant. People will be hurt. We may be among them. Do you have any questions? Hermione raised her hand. Granger, this is not a class. No, sir. I want to say, sir, if it is necessary that one of us, I will stay behind to Granger. Snape's voice went quiet. You are 15 years old. You are not staying behind for anything. Are we clear? Yes, sir. Then move. It almost worked. Harry would think about it later often with the particular obsession of survivors who could see, in retrospect, the precise place where the plan had fractured. Hermione's detonators went off in the corridor with 2 great hollow whump-whump sounds and a flash of green-white light, and 3 of the masked figures turned. And Snape, striding into the antechamber with the long, calm step of a man who came into such rooms as a matter of routine, drew his wand and dropped 2 of them with a pair of stunners so casual they looked rude. The 3rd Death Eater, who had been standing closest to Sirius, turned in time to deflect Snape's 3rd stunner. He raised his wand to fire back. Snape's 4th stunner caught him in the throat. He went down. In the 4 seconds that took, Harry, under the cloak and barefoot for silence, slipped behind Snape into the antechamber and reached Sirius. Sirius's eyes flicked up. He did not miraculously react with any visible motion. He had, Harry would learn, spent many years of his life learning not to react to people approaching him from behind. He saw Harry under the cloak. He saw the wand in Harry's hand. He saw Snape ahead in the room. His mouth, bloody, moved without sound. Kid. Harry got to him. Harry pressed the cloak open. Harry pressed Sirius's wand back into his hand. Sirius's left hand, the one with the Tonks bracelet on it, came up. Harry tapped the bracelet with his own wand and said the activation word Moony, which Sirius had picked because it was Remus's name misspelled in his own handwriting and no Death Eater would think of it. Sirius vanished. There was a small puff of displaced air where he had been. Harry, kneeling, felt the cool draft of empty space at his fingertips. Sirius had gone home. Sirius had gone home. Harry stood up, and he should have left then. He should have left then because that was the plan, and Snape had been very clear about the plan, and he had agreed to the plan. He should have turned and gone back along the corridor under the cloak and out to the lift and back up to the atrium and gone home himself. He had Hermione behind him, and Hermione was already pulling at his elbow under the cloak. Come on, Harry, come on. He turned. He was halfway turned when the door at the back of the antechamber opened. The door at the back of the antechamber was the door into the prophecy hall. It opened with a soft whoosh of a long room exhaling, and a tall figure stood in it, and the figure was not masked, and the figure had red eyes, and the figure had hands like long pale spiders, and the figure was Voldemort. He had been in the prophecy hall the entire time. He had been waiting for the door to open from this side. Severus. The voice was light, almost amused. Snape, who had been standing with his wand on the 3 down Death Eaters, did not lower the wand. He did not turn toward Voldemort. He stood with his profile to the door and his wand still leveled, and his face did, very briefly, a thing that Harry could see from his position behind him. The small, tight, deliberate composing of a man's face into the face he intended other people to see. The composing took perhaps half a second. My lord, you stunned 3 of my servants. They were attempting to curse me, my lord. I had no time to identify them. I saw masks. I assumed horrors. The boy, my lord, has been brought as you instructed. He is in the corridor under his cloak. With him is his small mudblood friend who was harder to dissuade than I had expected. I thought it best to bring them both. I trust I have not displeased you." The lie was beautiful. Harry, frozen under the cloak, recognized it for what it was. Snape had bought them 3 seconds. 3 seconds in which Voldemort might be made to hesitate. 3 seconds was a great deal. Voldemort considered him. "You have not displeased me, Severus, yet bring him forward. My lord, the cloak, bring him forward. My lord, yes." Snape turned. He turned with the slow, obedient turn of a servant who has been told to bring a thing to his master, and his eyes met Harry's where Harry was standing under the cloak, and his eyes flicked once, very fast, to the door behind Harry, the corridor door, the way out. "Go," the eyes said. "Go now." Harry did not go. Hermione, beside him, was already pulling hard. She had her hand on his wrist under the cloak. She was a small, steady weight at his side. He did not move. He understood, in the slow, strange clarity of the moment, what was about to happen. Snape was about to walk over to him. Snape was about to find him under the cloak and bring him forward because Snape had no choice. And Snape would do it as slowly as he could, but he would do it. And then Voldemort would have him. And Voldemort would, having him, look first at his servant Severus Snape, who had performed this delivery, and Voldemort would say, perhaps, "Come closer, Severus. Let me look at the boy in your hands." And Voldemort would, looking at Snape's face up close, see something. He would see something. He always saw something. And then Snape would die. Harry stepped out from under the cloak. He stepped out himself. He stepped past Snape, who had been 3 paces from him and had taken a 4th pace slowly in his direction. He stepped out into the open and he raised his wand, and he held the wand pointed straight at Voldemort, and he said very clearly, and he was surprised by how steady his own voice was, "Tom." The room went very still. Snape, who had taken a 5th pace toward where Harry had been, stopped in mid-stride. Voldemort blinked. It was a small, slow, surprised blink, and Harry saw it, and Harry did not let himself hope for anything from it, but he noted it. "What?" said Voldemort almost gently. "Did you call me, boy?" "I called you Tom. It is your name. You have been pretending it is not your name for 30 years, and it has been your name the whole time. It is the name in your school records. It is the name on your mother's grave. It is the name your father did not give you, which is the only thing your father ever did for you that was kind." "You insolent! I have a question, Tom." "You are going to. Have you ever," Harry said, "wondered why the prophecy you have been after for 15 years is on a shelf you cannot lift down?" Silence. Voldemort's eyes had gone narrow, very narrow. "You cannot lift it down, can you? You have been trying for 15 years. The department's mystery office puts each prophecy on the shelf in such a way that only the people the prophecy is about can lift it down, and you have known that for 15 years, and you have been trying for 15 years to find a way around it, and I know this because you sent Sirius down to draw me here to lift it for you, because I am the one in the prophecy. I am one of the people the prophecy is about. I can lift it, you can't. Boy, I am not going to lift it for you. You will. I will not. You will lift the prophecy. You will lift it, or I will kill the half-blood traitor at your back. I will kill him in front of you slowly, and I will make you watch, and then I will have you put your hand on the orb, and you will lift it for me anyway. Only you will lift it with the weight of his death on you. Choose, boy, choose now." Snape did not move. Snape did not move. He stood 3 paces behind Harry with his wand at his side, and he did not move. Harry had a thought. The thought was, if I lift the prophecy, Tom learns the words of the prophecy, and the words are the complete description of how to kill me. If I do not lift the prophecy, Tom kills Snape, and I lift the prophecy anyway. Either way, Tom learns the prophecy. Either way, I lose. But Snape at his back was still alive. But the order was on the way. But Tom did not yet know about the parchment. But Tom was about to find out, because Tom was about to look at Snape's face and see what Voldemort always saw when he looked at faces, which was everything you did not want him to see. Harry made a decision. He made it in about a second and a half. He would later not be able to explain why he had made it. It had not been a clever decision. It had not even been a well-judged decision. It had simply been the decision he had made, and the decision once made, the world had to live with it. "Tom," he said, "I will lift the prophecy, on one condition. You do not get to set, on one condition. I will lift the prophecy if you let him go. Send him out the way Sirius went out. Then I will lift the prophecy and I will give it to you." Voldemort smiled. It was a slow smile. It was an interested smile. It was the smile of a man who is being negotiated with by someone he had not expected to negotiate. "My dear Severus," Voldemort said, looking at Snape, "the boy seems quite attached to you. How extraordinary. Tell me, Severus, have you and the boy become acquainted in some way that I have not been informed about?" "My lord, Look at me, Severus." Snape lifted his head. He looked. Harry, watching, saw what happened next as if in slow motion, because in real time it was so fast and so terrible that he could not afterwards fit it into any frame he had for time. Voldemort's eyes changed. It was the smallest of changes, a slight contraction, a slight focus, the kind of focus one saw in a hawk's eye when the hawk had spotted a movement on the ground, and Harry knew, with a certainty that fell into him like cold water, that Voldemort had just done what Voldemort did with eyes. He had looked. He had not used a wand. He had not said a word. He had simply looked, and Snape had been doing what Snape did with his face for 15 years, and Snape had not this once been in time, because Snape had spent the last fortnight being a different man from the man who had been rehearsing the face for 15 years, and the new man's defenses were not yet built. "Ah," Voldemort said. A long pause. "Ah, my dear Severus." "Ah," he laughed. He laughed lightly, and the laugh was the laugh that had come down Harry's scar 20 minutes ago, and Harry understood, with a savage hatred he did not know he was capable of, that Voldemort had been planning to laugh that laugh for 15 years and had only just got the chance. "The boy is yours," Voldemort said with delight. "Look at this, look at this. I send you to spy on Albus and you bring me back the world's most extraordinary souvenir. Severus, Severus, my faithful servant, how very, very loyal you have not been, and for how long?" "My lord, how long, Severus?" "My lord, I learned of it 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. I knew nothing. I believe you, Severus. I am surprisingly going to believe you. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of you walking around my manor with this knowledge in your head, and you did not tell me. 2 weeks, Severus, Severus, Severus." He raised his wand. He raised his wand at Snape, and Snape did not move, and Harry threw himself sideways. Not at Voldemort, at Snape. He threw himself in a flat tackling dive, the kind of dive he had learned at Quidditch trying to catch a snitch off the side of his broom, and he hit Snape mid-chest at the precise moment Voldemort said the word. And the word was not the killing curse. Voldemort was, even in his fury, far too curious about this new development to use the killing curse. The word was Crucio, and the curse hit Harry instead of Snape. The curse hit Harry instead of Snape because Harry had put himself in the way. Harry would, ever afterward, be unable to describe what Crucio felt like. He would say it is hot, and he would say it is cold, and he would say it is the inside of a tooth being scraped from the inside. Only the tooth is every tooth that has ever been or will be, and people would nod at him with the particular nod of people who had not had it, and were polite enough not to admit they had no idea what he was talking about. The curse hit him for perhaps 3 seconds. He was aware that he was screaming. He was aware that Snape, beneath him on the floor, was trying to push him off, was trying to get up, was trying to shield him with his own body, and Harry pushed back, kept Snape down, kept Snape under him, because Voldemort had thrown the curse at Snape, and as long as Harry was on top of Snape, the curse would have to come through Harry to reach him. The curse stopped. Harry came back to his body. He was on his side on the polished black floor. Snape was beneath him with his arms around his ribs, holding him steady. Hermione was crouched at his head. Hermione's hand was on his hair. Hermione's wand was raised at the door. The door was full of people: Mad-Eye, Lupin, Kingsley, Tonks, Molly, Dumbledore. Voldemort had stopped the Crucio because Voldemort had seen Dumbledore in the doorway, and Voldemort, who was many things but not stupid, had registered the change in the room. There was, for one strange suspended second, silence. Then Voldemort said in the soft, pleased voice of a man who has just been handed a much more interesting problem than the one he came for, "Albus, Tom, you have come for the boy." "I have come for several things, Tom. The boy is one of them. My friend Severus is another. I will, in fact, take both of them home tonight, and I would prefer to do so without unnecessary unpleasantness. You will take neither. I will take both. Albus." "Tom," Dumbledore said very gently, "a great many things have happened today that you did not plan. You may, if you wish, salvage some dignity by leaving the building before more do. Or you may stay, in which case we shall fight and one of us shall die and the other shall be the worse for it. I would prefer the first option. It is sensible. You have, I think, become so unaccustomed to sense that you will reject it on instinct. I am sorry for that." Voldemort looked at him. He looked at Harry on the floor. He looked at Snape beneath Harry. He smiled. "Severus." Snape, from beneath Harry's body, said nothing. "Severus," Voldemort said, "I am, of course, going to kill you. Not today. Today is too small for it. I am going to take some time. I am going to consider with great care the precise method. I am going to come for you. You should know this. I want you to know this so that the rest of your life, however many days, weeks, or months it turns out to comprise, you will spend looking over your shoulder. Are you listening, Severus?" "Yes, my lord." "Good. Goodbye, Severus." He turned. He did not turn fast. He turned the way a man turned when he had decided that a room was no longer interesting. He looked once at Dumbledore. He inclined his head very slightly in something that was not a bow and was not respect, but was, perhaps, a recognition between two old men of a balance they were both, for the moment, choosing to maintain. He raised his wand. He vanished. He took with him the 3 Death Eaters Snape had stunned, who vanished in the small synchronized pop of beings being recalled by their master through the dark mark. The chamber was suddenly enormous and empty. Harry rolled off Snape. He sat up. His teeth were chattering. His ribs hurt. His vision wavered. Snape sat up beside him. He did not stand. He sat. He had lost his wand somewhere. He was not immediately looking for it. He looked at Harry. He reached out. He put a hand very carefully on the side of Harry's face. He did not say anything. Harry leaned into the hand for a second. He did not remember in his entire life ever leaning into a hand on the side of his face. He did it now. He shut his eyes. The room receded briefly. "You stupid, stupid boy," Snape said very quietly. "I know. You were not to engage. I know. You were to leave. I know. That was a tactically catastrophic decision, Potter. I know. I'm sorry. It was also," Snape stopped. He took a breath. "It was also the bravest thing I have ever seen anyone do in my life. Do not, Potter, ever do it again." "Yes, sir. Promise me." "I promise, sir." "Good." He took his hand off Harry's face. He stood up slowly. He held out a hand. Harry took it. Harry stood. Harry's knees did not entirely cooperate. Hermione was on his other side. She was pale. Her hand was steady in his. Dumbledore came across the room. He looked at Snape. He looked at Harry. He looked briefly at Hermione, and the corner of his mouth did a thing. "Miss Granger." "Sir." 5 points to Gryffindor for the use of decoy detonators in a tactical context. "Sir." 200 points to Gryffindor for everything else. "Sir." And Miss Granger, "Sir." "Detention Saturday with me in my office. We have a great deal to discuss about aura training. and about your future, which I think we may need to plan more carefully than we have been planning it. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Severus. Albus. How bad? He saw, Albus. He saw it on my face. I had no shield up. I have not been keeping my shields up these past weeks. I was not prepared. I am sorry. Do not be sorry. He saw it because the boy saved your life by stepping in front of you, and you, in seeing the boy step in front of you, were briefly a man with a son rather than a spy with a part to play. That is not a failure, Severus. That is a promotion. It is the end of my usefulness. It is the end of one usefulness. It is the beginning of another. We have a great deal to do. We will do it. Yes, Albus. For now, home, all of us. Harry, are you walking? Harry tried walking. Walking was, he discovered, a thing he could do, although the floor had developed an opinion about whether he was on it or not. I am walking, sir. Then walk slowly. Severus, your arm, Miss Granger, his other arm. We will walk together. Mad-Eye Kingsley, sweep behind us. Molly, you have him. Lupin, the cloak. Nymphadora, the corridor. Move. They moved. They did not, immediately, go back to the school. Dumbledore took them, instead, by portkey from the atrium to Grimmauld Place, where Sirius was on the front step in his bare feet, and his shirt half-buttoned, having been waiting since the moment his Tonks bracelet had deposited him on his hearthrug at 4:25. He took one look at Harry and made a noise that no human being has any business making, and then Harry was being held, very hard, against Sirius's collarbone, and Sirius was saying, "Kid, kid, kid, kid," and Harry was crying for the first time in what felt like a long time. And when Snape, slightly behind, slightly slower, came up the steps, Sirius reached out his other arm without letting Harry go and pulled Snape into the hug too. Snape did not, at first, know what to do with the arm. He stood awkward with Harry's head against Sirius's chest and Sirius's arm around his own shoulders and his own arms at his sides, and he looked down at the top of Harry's head and looked across at Sirius's face and said very stiffly, "Black, Snape, you are hugging me. I am hugging you, yes, get over it. I am getting over it, I am attempting to. It is taking me a moment." Sirius laughed. He laughed properly. He let go of Snape's shoulders. He did not let go of Harry. He pulled them all inside, the three of them and Hermione and Dumbledore and the rest of the Order, and the hall at Grimmauld Place was full and warm and noisy, and Mrs. Black's portrait started screaming, and Sirius silenced it with a flick of his wand without looking, and Molly was already in the kitchen, and Kingsley was bolting the front door, and Tonks was running upstairs to start the fire in the bedroom Harry was going to be put in if Harry let himself be put in any bedroom. And Harry would not let himself be put in any bedroom because he was, by then, sitting on the bottom step of the staircase with Sirius next to him, and Snape standing in front of him, and Snape was kneeling, and Snape was checking him for splinters of curse residue with his wand, and Snape's hands were not. Harry was very interested to notice, entirely steady. "Sir, yes, Potter, sir, your hands are shaking. Yes, are you all right? Number, what's wrong? You took a Cruciatus curse from me, Potter. Yes, that is what is wrong. Sorry, do not apologize. Stop apologizing, Potter. I am not equipped today to receive apologies. We will leave that for tomorrow." "All right, sir." A small silence. Snape's wand finished its sweep. He lowered it. He still did not stand up. He stayed on his knees in front of the staircase with his head at about Harry's level, and he looked at Harry and Harry looked at him. "Sir, yes. There's a thing I want to do, now, before everything keeps happening." "What?" "Dad." The word sat in the air for a second. Snape did not move. I don't mean to take it away from James. James is still my dad. James is the man who held me when I was a baby and who died for me in the doorway. James is my dad. Father, though. Father I haven't used. I never use it. I don't have anyone to use it for. And it's the only word that fits what you are. Biologically. Legally now. It's also a word I'd like to use. For you, sometimes. Not all the time. Sometimes, if that's all right. Snape was very still. Potter, father, sir, or sir. I'll use both, depending, father in private. Sir in front of the school because even if everyone finds out tomorrow, there's no point making a thing of it in class. And sir, is that? Yes, Snape said quietly. That is acceptable. Yeah, yes, Potter, father. Yes, Harry on the steps smiled. It was a tired smile. It was a small smile. It was the first smile he had had since Friday morning about 3 Fridays ago. All right, father. Could you please take your wand off your knee and check my left ankle? I think I might have twisted it, falling on you. That was, Potter, that was not falling on me, that was tackling me. There is a difference. I will check your ankle. Hold still. He checked the ankle. The ankle was, in fact, twisted. He splinted it with a small, tidy charm. He did not stand up immediately. He stayed on the step. He set his wand down on the floor beside him. Sirius, sitting on Harry's other side, leaned across. Snape, Black, you did all right. I did adequate. Snape, what? Take the compliment. I am taking it. I have taken it. Stop, Black, you are embarrassing me. Snape, you are capable of embarrassment. Who knew? Black, I am going to. You are not. You are too tired. Go and have soup. Molly has made enough soup to feed the Wisengamot. Go and eat. You can fight me tomorrow. You will lose. I will not lose. You will. I am much fitter. You are recently out of Azkaban. You are not. Boys, Dumbledore said gently from the kitchen door, soup. They went and had soup. They sat at the long table at Grimmauld Place. Molly had set out soup, bread, cheese, and a great deal of the fire whiskey Sirius had been hoarding. And they ate, and they talked. And at some point in the middle of it, Hermione came and sat next to Harry and rested her head on his shoulder. And at some point after that, Ron arrived, having ridden the night bus from Hogsmeade in a state of considerable indignation. And Ron sat on the other side of Harry. And the three of them ate soup together while around them the adults plotted. And Harry was very tired, and the kitchen was very warm, and the world had not ended. Later, much later, after the soup, after the long meeting, after Harry had been sent to bed in the room upstairs and Sirius had sat with him until he was asleep, and then, when he was asleep, had moved a chair to the doorway and stationed himself there for the night with his wand in his hand and a book on his knee, Snape and Dumbledore stood in the back garden of Grimmauld Place, which was a small dark square of unloved earth with 2 crooked apple trees and a wall that needed pointing. He saw Albus. He saw, my usefulness as a spy is over. Yes, he will move on the school, he will move on the boy, he will move soon, having nothing left to gain by waiting. He will. We have perhaps a fortnight, perhaps less. The school will move into a defensive posture, the order will mobilize. Lucius will, I think, be careful. He has, I suspect, known about Harry for some weeks and not told the Dark Lord. He had reasons of his own. He will continue to have reasons of his own. We may be able to use this. Lucius. Yes, I should have foreseen Lucius. You have many things to foresee, Severus. You may forgive yourself one. I do not, in general, forgive myself one. Begin. Snape was silent a moment. He looked up at the apple trees. The leaves were going the way leaves went in November, brown and curled and sad. Albus. Yes. He called me father. Heard. On the staircase. I heard. He said I'd like to use it for you. Sometimes. He said not all the time. He said it in the voice of a 15-year-old who had spent 30 seconds working out the shape of a thing he was going to say and then had said it. He gave it to me, Albus. He gave it to me as a small considered gift, the way one gives a person a thing that one has been thinking about how to wrap. I do not know what to do with it. You will, my dear boy. You will know. You are knowing already. You knelt down on the floor in front of him and you did not get back up for 10 minutes. You knew exactly what to do. That was not knowing what to do. That was being unable to stand up. It is sometimes the same thing. Albus. Yes, I am going to die. You may, many of us may. The probability of any one of us dying in the coming year has, as of this afternoon, increased by some considerable margin. Yes. I am asking you to make me a promise. Ask. If I die, the boy, he is to know that I was not the man he met in his first lesson. He is to know that for 2 weeks I was a man trying. He is to know that the trying was, at least in part, for him. He knows already, Severus. You do not need me to tell him. He has known for some days. Tell him anyway. I will tell him. Swear it. I swear it. Thank you, Albus. Severus, yes. You are not, I think, going to die. You cannot know that. I cannot. I observe, however, that very few men have ever died who had been described on the same evening by Sirius Black as having done all right. Statistically, Severus, the omens are not unfavorable. Snape laughed. It came out quietly. It came out against his will, almost helplessly. It was the first real laugh he had laughed in perhaps 20 years. Albus. Yes. Go away. I am going. Thank you. You are welcome, my dear boy. Sleep. Tomorrow we begin the rest of it. Harry woke at sunrise. He did not remember falling asleep. He did not remember being put to bed. He remembered the soup. He remembered Sirius's hand on his hair. He remembered Snape, father, kneeling in the hall and checking his ankle and saying that is acceptable in a voice that had been, just for the second of the saying, unsteady. He sat up in the bed at Grimmauld Place. The light was gray-pink at the window. Sirius was asleep in the chair by the door, his head fallen sideways, his book open on his lap. Hedwig had come from the school, as Hedwig sometimes did when she sensed Harry was somewhere Hedwig was needed, was on the bedpost. Harry got up very softly. He padded barefoot to the door. He stepped past Sirius. He went down the stairs. The kitchen was empty. The fire was banked. There was a cup on the table and a folded piece of paper next to it. The cup had tea in it. The tea was warm. The piece of paper in a thin, neat hand he had been learning said, "Potter, you will be hungry. There is bread in the larder and butter. Eat. Drink the tea. I have gone to the school to brief Minerva. I will return at noon. You are not to leave this house without Black or me. Sirius is asleep upstairs because he has not slept in 3 days. He will be irritable. Humor him. Hermione is in the green bedroom. Ron is on the sofa in the drawing room. Do not wake them. SSPS. I will not today use the word PPS. I will, however, use it again when you are next ready." Harry read the note twice. He folded it. He put it in the pocket of his pajamas. He buttered the bread. He ate the bread. He drank the tea. He sat at the kitchen table at Grimmauld Place in the gray-pink dawn of a Friday morning in November, and he listened to the house breathing around him. Sirius upstairs, Hermione in the green bedroom, Ron snoring on the drawing-room sofa, Hedwig on the bedpost above, and he held a brass token in one hand under the table and the folded note in the other, and he thought, "I have a dad in the ground. I have a father at the school. I have a godfather upstairs. I have 2 best friends in the house. I have a house. The world has not ended. It has, in fact, only just started." He drank his tea. Outside in the small dark garden, the leaves on the apple trees turned very slightly in a breeze that had come up from the river. The sun was not yet over the wall. The day was not yet anyone's. It was a Friday. Friday was a small day. Friday was when the small things broke. Today nothing was going to break, Harry decided, holding his tea. Today was a small day, and he was going to have it small, and he was going to drink his tea slowly. And at noon a man with thin black hair and tired eyes and a folded note in his pocket would come back to this house, and Harry would meet him at the door, and he would, on consideration, use the word. He took another sip of tea. The sun came over the wall. Chapter 5 End.